answering them.
Guys, this is Gamester, and we got Johnny and Pete here. We're recording this intro kind of post-recording the episode 2, and the reason for doing this is because we're just very shocked that you guys, the overwhelming support we've gotten for this podcast is awesome, and we all just want to kind of throw something in here, beginning the show, and personally, it's just amazing, the viewers and the positive comments we received. I just want to thank you guys for that. So, Johnny, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I just same as you. I just want to thank everybody for the positive feedback that we've been getting, and we've been listening to everybody about all the good and some of the bad, and some of the bad we're addressing. And one of the areas is the cutting people off thing. First of all, I updated Skype. So that should help out a bit. That seems to be helping out the problem. We've also ordered some really good microphones, and we should be getting those in the next couple of weeks. I think Pete's getting his probably tomorrow. Gamester will probably be getting his later next week. Me, probably later next week as well. But I think that'll really help out. And I think what we're doing now is developing a system. I think we're feeling a little bit more confident about what we're doing, and we're kind of getting a little bit more systematic about the way we're doing it. And I think that's the kind of thing that's going to take a long time. If you guys ever go back and watch any of our original videos, which I think we talked about, you can tell that there's some learning curves, and it's the same for video as it is for podcasts, and we're absolutely going through that learning curve, and that's totally normal and totally natural, and I think the show's going to get a lot better. But thanks for bearing with all these things, and I think it's going to get a lot better over time. Definitely. What do you think, Pete?
Yeah, definitely. The response to this was overwhelming, and at one point me and Johnny were just checking out iTunes, and we actually realized, days after the podcast came out, that we were ranked as number 3 overall, the most popular, in terms of popularity on iTunes, the number 3rd most popular podcast in the games and hobbies section. So there was a point where we were beating out the G4 and the game trailers and the IGN and the joystick and the giant bombs and all these other podcasts that were out there and everything. And we were just like totally blown away. Now, naturally, of course, our standing has dropped a little bit. Like right now we're number 6, but that is just unbelievable for us that you guys have shown so much support for us and left us reviews and ratings and all that and downloads that it brought us up that high in iTunes. And just to also go off of what Johnny was saying about the new microphones, we are getting 3 professional quality microphones. It's the blue Snowball microphones, and we're all getting the same mic, so hopefully our audio will be about the same now when we record, because we're using headsets and just standard USB stuff right now. So, because I go back to edit the show and my microphone ends up being like much louder than others, and other people come in much lower. So we're working out the kinks. We're definitely going to get the audio quality up to par. And like Johnny said as well, we're developing a system now where a lot of complaints about the first episode were, people cutting off one another. We realized this. A lot of people voiced their opinions on, that issue, and we're working it out. I hope you guys listen to episode 2 and realize that we definitely improved a bit on that aspect, and we're definitely going to be avoiding that in the future. Just don't forget, we're recording on Skype, so sometimes there can just be some lag issues where someone cuts somebody off and just doesn't realize it until, a second later when someone else starts to talk. So I'm sure over time we're going to get this down pat, and the show will be the best quality that we can bring it to you guys. And so here we go. This is going to lead us right into episode number 2, where I'm going to introduce it. Thanks for listening, guys, and also be sure to stay till the end of the show, where we're going to answer your questions that you left us from episode 1. So here we go. All right, hey guys, and welcome to episode number 2 of All Gen Gamers. My name is Pete, also known as Pete Dorr, with the Pete's Game Room channel on YouTube, and tonight I am joined by John Gamester, also known as Gamester81 on YouTube. What's up, John?
What's going on, guys? How you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good, and tonight we're also joined by, once again, Johnny with the Happy Console Gamer Show on YouTube.
Yo, guys, how's it going tonight?
And our guest for this episode is Chris Bucci, also known as Spider1A on YouTube.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Great to have you, Chris.
Yeah, definitely. You're known as the resident Turbo Grafx guru on YouTube, but before we get into that, because I know you're all dying to hear about the Turbo Grafx, which I'm sure 80% of you might not have heard of, I just want to address an issue really quick. We're actually recording this episode before the first episode is actually even released, because right now we're still awaiting approval on iTunes, and we didn't want to release the first episode until we're on there. So I know on last week's episode at the end I said for you guys to submit questions to us on our forum. Well, unfortunately, there's no questions for us yet because, well, we haven't even released the first episode. So what we're going to do is, if iTunes accepts us pretty soon, what we're going to do is we'll still answer you guys' questions. We'll just edit it in at the end of this show. So just wanted to quickly address that. So, we can't do any addressing of thank you guys for listening and blah, blah, blah because, well, we're recording the second episode, like I said, without the first being released. So we're going to get right into it. Spida or Chris, would you explain to our listeners, especially the people that don't know what the Turbo Grafx is, just about the system, some of the games, whatever your take on it is?
Oh, sure. It's funny you should say to the people who don't know what it is. That's probably the majority of the people listening, because it was quite an obscure system, even back in the day when it came out. And I think that's one of the reasons why I started the whole Turbo Views thing, is because a lot of people didn't know anything about it. And it was basically an American system that was released in 1989. In fact, the Sega Genesis and the Turbo Grafx 16, a lot of people don't know, sort of came out about the same time. And for the first 6 months or so, from what I read anyway, they both did pretty well together. And then, of course, the Genesis took over. But there was a system that was very popular in Japan. It was called the PC Engine. And when it came here, it didn't quite make the splash they had hoped. And some of the games some people might have heard of. There's games like the Bonk series, like Bonk's Adventure. That was sort of the system's mascot after a while, and a lot of people heard of that. I think isn't there a newer version of it coming out?
There is a new one. Forgot all about that.
Yeah. I saw something, there's something coming out for it, yeah.
It's interesting that you said it came out around the same time as the Genesis, because that's when I was heading into, the Wiz stores and Funkolands and everything, buying games for my Genesis, and I'll tell you, I don't ever recall seeing Turbo Grafx games at all in the stores, so I didn't even know the system existed until years later when a friend of mine had it.
Yep, and I mean, honestly, I didn't have it either at first. I mean, I didn't have anything new at first. I didn't make the next leap from my Nintendo/Game Boy until 1991 when I got the Turbo Grafx. So I got it about a year and a half or so after it came out. So, I kind of know exactly what you're talking about. But, I don't know. Do you guys remember Toys R Us used to have those kiosks next to the gaming section, and they'd have these promotional videos playing? Nintendo had ones. The Genesis had ones.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I remember those.
Yep.
I used to sit there and stare.
We had them at Radio Shack up here. Same thing, absolutely.
Yeah, and I used to sit there and stare at these things, these systems and games I couldn't have. And the Turbo Grafx was one that for some reason I kept looking at over and over and over, and sort of made the purchase once the system went down to a price that I could afford, And
hey, Chris, I got a question for you. So you were looking at the kiosk and you're like, wow, this is like an amazing machine. There's some really cool games, you said, right? But what kind of games attracted you at the time to it?
The one image that I remember, and this is leading back to Bonk. I remember, and I'm sure you remember, Johnny, the scene where there's the big dinosaur and Bonk hits him in the head and his tongue comes out, and then Bonk jumps on his tongue. For some reason, that continuously burned an image into my mind, and I thought that looked really fun. Now, I was a huge action platformer. I loved shoot 'em ups. I know it's called shmup. I never heard that until I got on YouTube.
I agree, Chris. I never really heard that term shmups either, and I still don't use that term. I'm not against it, but I say
I'm the same way. I don't say shmup. It just sounds weird to me. I still recall. I just call them shoot 'em ups.
Yeah.
People say it like it was always around. I don't remember anybody saying that in 1990.
They were called shooters. I remember in Game Fan magazine, they referred to them as shooters.
Yeah, I wonder if Angry Video Game Nerd coined that or something. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, it looks like we're the first ones with the cojones to say this. But anyway, no, but I was a huge fan of shooters and action platform games. And And so, and it's funny because there were some great ones on the Genesis, and for some reason though, that bonk image just, and then this, Splatterhouse. I saw Splatterhouse, and I went, oh, they have Splatterhouse. And then, and I don't know if this is what you were getting at too, Johnny, but I also saw the CD-ROM stuff, and I thought at that time, that blew my mind. I didn't know, I couldn't believe.
Sorry, can I stop you again and ask you a question? Is that you saw the CD-ROM and you saw the games for that? Again, same kind of question. What games attracted you to the CD-ROM at the time? That's really interesting to me.
Well, it's tough because a lot of people are gonna make fun of me, but you know what attracted me at the time, quite frankly, was stuff like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, because I could not believe that there was any kind of motion video going on a CD. But also,
this is before the Sega CD, right? So this is like, whoa.
It was the first.
I'm the same with you. Like when I saw that, I was like blown away.
It was the first CD
Honestly,
system. It
was the first home console to have a CD attachment, and I think some computer stuff did that kind of thing at that time, but as far as a home console, it was like I couldn't believe that I could maybe have this technology in my bedroom. It blew my mind. And CD quality sound, I think they call it Red Book audio. I've heard that term a lot. That stuff, to have that kind of quality music and real voices and cutscenes like Last Alert, which was wonderfully cheesy. I don't know. So games like that and games like action games like Last Alert and stuff also attracted me to the CD-ROM. Just I think more the technology is what interested me than anything else.
I actually have a question about the CD-ROM. I always found it interesting because I'm not too sure about this, but on the back of the Turbo Grafx, the US one, they had that expansion bay in the back that was hidden with the piece of plastic. Now, when they released the system, how did they know to plan ahead and put that, expansion on the back? Did they know that they were going to be coming out with the CD add-on, before they even launched it?
Well, I think, and I could be wrong here, I'm not as up on PC Engine as a lot of people are. Because again, and this is what throws a lot of people on my channel, is I focus on the Turbo Grafx 16, the American version, because that's what I grew up with. The Japanese, the PC Engine version, I'm not as up on it. Only lately have I been able to, sort of dig into it. But I think the CD-ROM was planned or coming out in Japan around the time the American release of the Turbo Grafx was going on, so I'm pretty sure they knew it was going to be happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So they planned it.
And also,
the Turbo Grafx 16 in Japan, the PC Engine, actually came out almost 2 years before it came out in America. It came out to compete with the Nintendo Entertainment System. And when it came out in America, it ended up competing with the Genesis, and I think that was one of its biggest problems, was it wasn't a true 16-bit system, and the Genesis, said that it was, and that caused I remember getting in arguments with people at Toys R Us. Your system isn't a real this and that, and I go, yeah, well, mine has more colors than yours. But, it's like, but I think that was the other problem, too, is I don't think the system was meant to compete with the 16-bit gaming. It was meant to say, I'm better than Nintendo. Do you know what I mean? And I think that was one of its biggest problems when it came here.
Chris, I have a question for you real quick. I've heard that the Turbo Grafx 16 is not indeed 16-bit. Is that true? It's got two 8-bit?
Yes, it has two 8-bit stuff, and I always called it 8 plus 8-bit. And so to me, it's like if you took the Nintendo Entertainment System and you took the Sega Genesis, it's probably somewhere in the middle, But there were times some of the games I thought could easily rival the Sega in a lot of ways. I
thought the Street Fighter 2, particularly for the PC Engine, too bad it wasn't ported in the States, but that's a great port, and it really
it's amazing.
Yeah, it really shows off the power of this.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't believe it. I saw the screenshots for that, and I was I had the Turbo Express, which was the portable Turbo Grafx 16, and I bought Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, the PC Engine version with a converter, just so I could bring it to school. I was the only person in the world that had a handheld Street Fighter game brought to high school.
That's pretty awesome at the time. That was big stuff at the time. I think that for sure.
I think this would actually be a good time because we're talking about all these CD expansions and everything. Let's briefly talk about, because there's a lot of different versions of the Turbo Duo and the Super Graphics. I know Johnny, I know you got the Super Graphics, and Chris, I'm sure you got that too. But why don't you guys just discuss a little bit the differences between the versions and everything like that?
Okay, do you want to start, Chris, or do you want me? Like, what do you want?
Well, I guess if you want, let's start with the American consoles. The Turbo Grafx 16, which you mentioned, Pete, was first in America. It had the little plastic backing, and then the CD-ROM attachment came a little bit after that. And those two went together, and then they had an upgrade, which is actually the next video I'm working on, to the CD-ROM, which was called the Super System Card, and that allowed you to play the next generation of CD games on the Turbo, the Super CD games. And I remember they they had advertisements for the new Super CD, the new Super System Card, and they said, your old games were 1 megabit CD games. Now you can play 2 megabit CD games.
That's awesome.
And at the time, I'm like, hell yeah, 2 megabit. And
but yeah, what a lot of people don't know is how popular the PC Engine was in Japan. It was giving Nintendo a run for their money, absolutely, because they launched the original white PC Engine, then the CD-ROM, and then they released I believe it was the Core Graphics, the Core Graphics 2, and then obviously later on the Super Graphics, which was a colossal failure, but for collectors, it's still a very cool system to have. But and then I guess. Yeah, I guess NEC was just kind of saying, you know what, let's bring this over, let's do this, and obviously it didn't do too well over here, which is really unfortunate because it was doing well in Japan. They were looking at that business model, going, hey, it's doing good over there, let's bring it over here, and
it exploded in Japan. I mean, Johnny, Castlevania. There were some. I mean, some of the third-party games that didn't make it to America. I mean, were just. Amazing over there. And there's so many arguments out there as to why it didn't make it over here. NEC didn't promote it right. It came out at a bad time, whatever. I just, it could be a combination of all that stuff. And it really is a shame because it lasted almost twice as long out in Japan to the point where, like you said, when the Super Graphics came out, which was a little bit of an upgrade, everybody goes, no, I got my PC Engine, I'm good, and there wasn't enough interest to move up to just a little bit of an upgrade. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there was also the arcade card upgrade, too, which was just in Japan. That's one I do have, but I haven't really been able to play with that yet. I don't know if you have any experience with it at all.
Or the arcade card?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've actually played the arcade card, yeah, absolutely. It's good. It's allowing you to play games like Fatal Fury and stuff like that on your PC Engine, which was amazing at the time. But it came a little late.
I always thought it was kind of weird that they used cards to play that was kind of annoying to me, that you had to use a card to play your CD game. Because when you plugged in the Sega CD, you didn't have to have a disc to play your Sega CD games, So that's kind of weird to me.
It's a way for them to upgrade the system. It was kind of something that you can, as you say, go to a System Card 3 and play Super CD-ROM games. So it's kind of a big deal at the time.
Chris, I have a question for you. Do you have a?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Do you have a Turbo Duo system?
I was actually just going to bring that up because we didn't touch on that. The Turbo Duo, yes, is actually what I use to play all the games that I play for the reviews, and it is, it's awesome. It's really, really, aside from the one controller port and the fact that it does not use original Turbo Grafx controllers, but that's for another time, I love the Turbo Duo, and it is literally a combination of the Turbo Grafx, the CD-ROM, and the Super System Card, so it's pretty much the epitome of everything you could get in America anyway. And Johnny, it's funny when you were talking about things that didn't make it over there. If you had, now I didn't get the Turbo Duo when it first came out. I had the original CD-ROM and the original.
So did I.
And if you wanted to get the Super System Card, you had to get it mail order. It was not available in stores because
that's what I did. Yeah, I remember for Christmas. So for Christmas, I walked into a store, like a Japanese import store. I mean, God, what year would it be? But what year did Ease 3 come out? Was that 91 or 92? It was somewhere in there. And I remember I saw Ghost Warrior Spriggan, this shooter, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. But I knew I needed the System Card 3 to play it, so I I had an exchange student living with me. He went back to Japan for Christmas, came back with the system card for me, and an adapter. Oh, sorry, the adapter I ordered from the back of Game Fan magazine at the time. So talk about like back then to do some import gaming, you had to go through some you had to go through some hoops. And so all this stuff finally arrived, and I could finally play this game. You know, like wow, all the stuff you had to do to play a game.
The other reason this is fresh in my mind is because I literally am working on a Super System Card episode next, and the reason I'm focusing on it is because it was a pain to get it. I mean, it was. I had to literally. You had to call Turbo Technologies and you had to order it via mail, and then you could either get it with the system card by itself or you could get it combined with the Gate of Thunder combo disc, which is what I did. But I mean, I think they wanted to focus on their Turbo Duo and sort of their restructuring of the console, and then now it's Air Zonk and it's Turbo Duo, and I think they were kind of saying, you guys that have the CD-ROM are in such the minority, go ahead and go through hoops and find it yourself.
Now I have a question about the Turbo Duo, because I'm in the lookout for one right now too. You know, I'm not looking to spend too much for it, but I've heard a lot of accounts where the U.S. systems have a problem with like some kind of like overheating issue with the power, and supposedly the Japanese versions don't have that. Like, do you know about that at all?
I have read that the Japanese versions don't have that problem. The American version has a problem where the stuff starts to heat up and literally the music won't access. And then mine is actually doing that a little bit. Like you put in a game and it won't play the access CD music, and then all of a sudden it'll fade in, which says to me that mine's starting to go bad. So you can fix it. They have repair guides. The PC Engine forums, they lay it out with photos and exactly how you can tear it apart and fix it. But there is a little bit of a problem now that they're getting older with these systems. Yeah, at least I'm not too sure about the PC Engine one though. I did hear that.
Hey Chris, you mentioned earlier about the Turbo Technologies. You kind of briefly mentioned it. That's the company that made the Turbo Duo, correct? But the original Turbo Grafx 16 and PC Engine was made by NEC. So I think Turbo Technologies was a couple employees that kind of spun off and decided it was kind of on the way down. Wasn't the system kind of dying, and they decided to kind of create the system, so to speak, and kind of rejuvenate it?
Yeah, from what I gather from researching and stuff is that NEC was in charge of the U.S. distribution of it all, and then like you said, around '92. When it was apparent that the Super Nintendo and Genesis were going to have their wrestling match and the Turbo Grafx was going to be on the horizon watching, I think Turbo Technologies was formed as a subsidiary of Hudson Soft, who was also behind the original system, to sort of revitalize it and try to get people to notice it. So they created the Turbo Duo, and they took Bonk and they made him into Air Zonk, which is an awesome game. Funny story. They had a contest. Name the new Bonk character, and your name will appear and you'll win something. And I was trying to think of a way to name the Bonk character, and the winner was Zonk. Somebody took the B and made it a Z, and they won. Anyway. But yeah, but just like the arcade card in Japan, the Turbo Duo was just kind of too late, And when it came out, it was $299.99, which was really expensive at the time. Now it came jam-packed with stuff. It had a ton of games in there.
It sure did.
I mean, oh my God. I mean, it had Eastbook 1 and 2. It had Gate of Thunder, which had Bonk's Adventure and Bonk's Revenge and a Hidden Bomberman all in one disc. And then it came with like a turbo chip of some kind. You either got Ninja Spirit or Dungeon Explorer. And it came with a magazine. And it came with all this. So they were really, really trying. But,
trying to rope you in, absolutely.
It's pretty rare today. I mean, even if you're looking to get one, you're probably going to pay close to $200-300 for one. Even
I was going to bring that up. I was going to say it's really ironic that most systems the values like depreciate over time, but the Turbo Duo holds its like original price tag. Like you think of the 3DO launching at $700, you get it for a fraction. Same with like most other systems. Yeah,
10% of what? Yeah. Do you need the Super card to play the CD then on the Turbo Duo?
No, because the Turbo Duo has that incorporated inside of it already. So that was kind of the draw for a lot of people, was that it had everything all in one, so you didn't need it.
So what kind of card do you need to play the CD game? Just a regular CD?
Well, you would love it, Gamester. You need nothing. if there isn't a game in the slot, it's just like the Sega CD. It starts up the CD portion.
I was
and actually,
wondering.
speaking of Super System card, I just saw one the other day on eBay. Went for about $140.
Whoa.
Jeez.
And another one was $103, and it's just funny because originally it was $70 mail order by itself, or it was $90 if you got the Gate of Thunder disc, and so it's almost doubled in price just for the original card.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's amazing. They just must have. I don't think they made very many in America because you had to mail order the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something else that's kind of crazy is the adapter that you needed to play that on an American machine. The actual adapter itself, that these days goes for over $80 just for an adapter to put the arcade card into your Turbo Grafx. $80.
Okay, so you're talking about the arcade
a couple of months ago, and it was like I think it was $80 to $100 you paid.
Yeah, you're talking about the arcade card?
No, I'm actually talking about the adapter that you could put a Super CD card in. So System Card 3.
Okay. Well, no, there was an American Super System card. So you don't need an adapter for an American system if you have the Turbo Grafx 16 version of the Super System card. So you must have got the PC Engine Super System card.
I did actually. Yeah.
And then you had to get a PC Engine converter to utilize. Yeah,
that's
the PC
correct.
Engine,
Yeah, I did it all way before the Turbo Duo actually came out. So.
Yeah, so the PC Engine system cards aren't going for as much on eBay because I think there's a lot of them out there. But the Turbo Grafx 16 American ones are the ones that are really expensive.
Maybe that's what Bob got. Yeah.
It's funny that Chris, you mentioned you don't need a card because I own a Turbo Duo, and I've been trying to get my CDs to work, but I always plug in like a card in there, like a CD card, and I guess that's screwing it up. So I will have to do it without the card. So I learned something today, so I appreciate that. And
hey, it was useful. I'm not usually used.
It's great.
And I think that about does it for the US versions of the Turbo Grafx, right?
Yeah, aside from the Turbo Express, which we didn't touch, it's sort of a lot of people know the Sega Nomad, which came after. The Turbo Express was just a portable version of the base unit of the Turbo Grafx. The turbo chips just went in the back, and it's a pretty sweet machine. It feels like a heavy piece of hardware when you're holding it, and it takes 6 batteries that last 23 minutes, but. But it's really cool. Do you remember? Hey, Johnny, did you ever get any advertising? The only reason I'm talking to Johnny a lot is because he's a Turbo Grafx guy too. Did you ever get any ads in Canada for a company called Turbo Zone Direct?
I'm so happy you brought that up because that was something I wanted to mention, but I was trying to wait for the right time to bring it up. Oh, okay. And Turbo Zone Direct is kind of what was left of the Turbo. Turbo Technologies, am I correct? It was like a small warehouse, I believe, right?
Yeah, and for the longest time, they sold sealed copies of everything and stuff you couldn't get. And you know what they had there that I kept wanting to buy and I never did was a Turbo Express rechargeable battery pack, and I could kick myself. I bought the AC adapter, but I never bought the battery pack, and it's just one of those funny things that you remember that I never ended up getting.
Well, it's actually funny because. I guess the Turbo Zone place was really at the end of its life, and I think I called there in the year 2000. I phoned up, and I was a younger guy, and I'm like, hey, do you have the Turbo Duo? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, how much is it? They're like, $299 or so, whatever it was. I'm like, do you ship to Canada? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. And I hung up. It's so funny.
They're in their mom's basement doing inventory. You got to give them a break.
It seemed a little bit kind of, like it really was the end of the Turbo Grafx when I phoned up that place. Sadly so,
You know what I bought from them was a lot of the Gamester, when you were asking about Turbo Technologies. Yeah. Once Turbo Technologies took over, they cheaped out on some stuff. They cost cut on some stuff. They got rid of the boxes for Super CD games. They no longer gave you boxes. And the turbo chips that had boxes no longer had jewel cases inside. They had little plastic inserts. And so what Turbo Zone Direct sold, which was great, were actually blank jewel cases that had a little holder. So what I did is I bought like a ton of blank cases, and I put my Turbo Technology chips into those, and then made little generic side labels so that they would fit amongst my other games.
Which I'm very jealous of. That was a really good idea. Like when I saw that in your video, I was like, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Just go on eBay and buy a bunch of Keith Courage cases, and that go for about 25 cents.
Let's not get into Keith Courage just yet.
Also, real fast before we move away from the consoles, the Super Grafx in Japan. If you want to talk about systems with low libraries, didn't that only have like 5 or 6 releases? And if you guys can just touch real fast on like what was the point behind the Super Grafx and why did it fail so miserably?
Do you want to take it, Chris?
Why don't you take this one? I think your review on it was really in depth.
Oh, geez, yeah, that's one of my earlier reviews. But as far as I know, they wanted a success. I'll never understand it too. And they wanted a successor to the PC Engine, but they didn't really. When they made the Super Grafx, it was supposed to be that machine, but it wasn't that more advanced. It was like, okay, this is a little bit more RAM and stuff like that, but it basically was a PC Engine all over again with a bit more RAM, and it was like. Okay, and so developers actually a few developers started to make games for it, and then all of a sudden they released the machine, 5 games came out, and 5 games only ever came out, and there was always a promise of a few more games that never came, and like Strider, and stuff like that actually ended up becoming an arcade card later on, but yeah, like there was a lot of things planned, and it's a great machine, but I think, like I own it. I don't, Chris, do you have one? I don't know if...
Yeah, because I did do a Ghouls and Ghosts with the guy named Mark. Yeah. Which I mean, for those of you out there who are listening who don't know, there are a couple great Capcom games on that system.
Yes, there is.
And also the 1941 is a great version of those 2 games.
Yeah. And what was I going to say about the Super Grafx is that, yeah, the games were good. They were, but 5 games came out and it just flopped in Japan. Nobody bought this machine, and it actually had an attachment at the back for a CD-ROM system. And I believe this is kind of off the top of my head here. I believe you can use the older CD-ROM system on the back. I've never tested it. I actually have an old CD-ROMs. I've never actually tested it, so I don't want to say if that's 100%.
I'm pretty sure it's true.
I'm pretty sure. I'm curious if it would work with an American CD-ROM, but I bet it'll work with a PC, because they're a little different.
I think it was, I meant for that, yeah.
I wonder if the Super Grafx too is such an awkward-looking machine.
Looks like a space shuttle or something, like something from outer space.
It really does. It looks
like an engine. It looks like an engine. I mean, pretty much. Yeah, PC Engine. Yeah.
It's funny. Sorry, Chris, you go for it.
No, I was just going to say, I never thought about it looking like an engine. I guess you could, you could definitely correlate that.
It's got like the bolts and stuff too. It's on the side, and it's got a 6-cylinder engine. It looks like a 6-cylinder engine. It's kind of weird. But,
I just remember seeing it in a magazine, and I looked at it and I thought, this is really awesome. I don't know. I thought it was so cool looking. I'm like, something, the next Turbo Grafx. Wow, in Japan, the Super Grafx. This sounds good. It sounds like the Super Nintendo to the regular NES. So. High hopes that never came out over here, and I just want to mention one game, and that's absolutely outrageous. There was one game called Darius Alpha, and supposedly if you play it on the Super Grafx, I've never done it myself because I don't own the game. It actually has some more scrolling, more parallax scrolling and stuff like that. And the reason why I bring up that game, it's actually I think known as the 6th game, loosely. But not many people own it because it was a giveaway in Japan. And the game goes for no less than $1,500 on eBay.
Oh,
and I'm not kidding. It is the most expensive game in PC Engine history because you had to mail in for it, and you were lucky to get one. And not many people have it.
A spot for that.
One thing that the Turbo Duo could do was it could do the 2 layering, which the PC Engine could not do. So that's one thing that they did improve. And I think one thing the NEC why they were scared was because the Mega Drive had just was out obviously, and the Super Famicom was about to hit, and I think they got scared and flustered, and they figured let's rush the system to market and see what we can do about enhancing the graphics. And by the time it hit the market, like you said, Johnny, it really wasn't that much different than the TurboGrafx or the PC Engine. I mean, the saving grace is that it is backwards compatible. You can play PC Engine games on it. I think that's the only reason why I would look to get one, because you have all that library.
You're right. It's not so funny. It's a halfway mark between the 8-bit and 16-bit, but it's not even. You're right. If they'd waited just a little bit, that could have been a big contender. That could have changed the entire console war when you think about it.
It's really interesting too, because if you look at the way it's stacked in Japan was like you were saying about the PC Engine being so popular. In Japan, the Mega Drive really wasn't that popular, and not as popular as it was here. And so it was almost a battle between PC Engine and Super Famicom more so than it was in America, Super Nintendo and Genesis. It was a complete flip flop.
Yeah, and that's something else I was talking to somebody about is that most players in Japan who had a PC Engine and a Turbo Duo, the CD-ROM attachment, everybody had Far East of Eden. Far East of Eden was a huge hit in Japan. And that's another one, Chris, that you probably know they were planning to bring out here. It's actually in the back of an old Turbo magazine. You probably have it. They said that, yes, this is coming out, blah, 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 and it never came out, unfortunately.
They did that all the time. I loved Turbo Play magazine. I don't know if you ever got Turbo Play, but it was kind of like I always equated it to the Nintendo Power of the Turbo Grafx. It was the Turbo Grafx exclusive, and they would always have like an overseas section where they would tease you with all these wonderful games that you knew we probably weren't going to get. And I remember when they were teasing the Super System card and the Turbo Duo, they were showing stuff like they showed Street Fighter 2. Which we didn't get. They showed a Dragon's Lair. I distinctly remember seeing Dragon's Lair. And I got excited for that one, but that never came. I don't think that came out there either.
Why don't you guys? I know I'm kind of sitting this one out because I'll tell you, I'm not a Turbo Grafx expert at all. I only have a handful of games, so I'm just kind of listening to it all and learning a lot. But why don't you guys just hit on briefly like some of your favorite games from the system, some of your like most hated games on the system. And I'll save the surprise for the end because I kind of know one title that you two are going to bring up. So go ahead.
Chris, what's your favorite game on the Turbo Grafx? What's your favorite game?
Oh man, this is a tough one.
I know.
Well, of course I'm talking. Are we focusing just on the American system because that's what my channel is?
How about this? Pick an American game and a Japanese game.
Well, I can tell you my favorite Japanese one, and that's Castlevania.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Castlevania is, without a doubt, probably my favorite series ever, or one of. And so when I found out, and at that time, you couldn't just go online. And get imports. You had to call. I think it's funny you should mention Game. What was it, Game Fan? Because I think that's where I found this import place. I called every day asking if Castlevania was in because I couldn't believe there was one in Japan and we wouldn't have it here. And it was always sold out. Well, then somehow I found it one day and I got it imported. It was the first PC Engine title I imported. I didn't import very many. But that's probably my favorite in Japan.
How much did that cost you back in the day? That must have been a lot of money, eh?
I can't remember. I have to dig it up.
It must have been $100 easy plus shipping back then.
I don't remember. I really don't remember. Yeah. Well, first of all, I was the only one on the block that had a Turbo Grafx to begin with. And when people came over and saw that I had a Castlevania game they didn't hear of, and it was awesome, I was...
Yeah. Now, for our listeners that want to play this Castlevania game, is this the one that was also ported over to the PSP? Or is it available anywhere else? Yeah, on the PSP, right?
Yeah, the PSP one was sort of upgraded. That's the version.
And you can unlock the old. I think you can unlock the old game.
Yes, you can. Yeah, it starts off as Rondo of Blood, and then you can also unlock Symphony of the Night. And I didn't unlock the original Rondo, but I believe you can also unlock that.
Yeah, I think so.
It's cool. It's cool.
It's that cool, yeah. So that's your import choice. What is your American version? Favorite game?
Well, since you put me on the spot.
Spoiler alert for fans of his channel, because did you ever plan on doing like a top 10 video or something?
I didn't, but that might be a great idea to do. It's tough.
So spoiler alert.
I mean, goal of we haven't really talked much about my channel, but the goal of the channel is eventually to review all the American Turbo Grafx games, and so I can only really talk for the ones that I've played when I was growing up and the ones that I've played so far. And you know what? Bonk's Revenge, Gate of Thunder, East Book 1 and 2.
Yeah, good
Those are the
choice.
few I can think that would be tied right now.
Yeah. Good choice. Very good choices.
Chris, did you know that there was a Sega CD? We only found this out last week. There's a Sega CD version of Dungeon Explorer.
No kidding.
I actually just bought it today. I bought a copy today.
I didn't know that. No kidding. Huh.
Well, there's
What
not.
was
There's
do you know,
absolutely.
what's-
There's not a single video for it up on YouTube either. I tried searching. All there is like 2 soundtrack songs. There's absolutely no footage of this game on the Sega CD.
Is it based more on the Turbo Chip Dungeon Explorer or Dungeon Explorer 2?
I believe it is from looking at the back of the box on eBay, because that's the only place I've seen it. I haven't looked it up online.
Actually,
so
I did a little bit of research on it today from Sega 16, the website, and what they actually did was, because I've never played the original, but what they did was, Johnny, you probably know, and Chris, on the original game, you know how on the bottom, like all your stats were down there? They updated that bar, moved it to the right side. They actually took out 2 classes. They no longer have the Witch or the Bishop, so they actually took out 2 classes. And they updated a lot of the graphics. It's not as colorful, but the sprites and everything are more detailed. And I believe the soundtrack as well is much more updated. So they did change the game quite dramatically from what I looked up on it.
That's great.
That's interesting, because the original Dungeon Explorer is a pretty great game, and for a turbo chip also. I mean, the music's awesome and all the different. I love that game, and the second one's fantastic. In fact, that's another one that would probably be up there, which a lot of people have never even seen before, because it was one of those later Super CD games a lot of people didn't see before.
I missed it. I never saw it in any store back in the old days, right? I never saw that.
I didn't either. I got it much later. Yeah, I couldn't find it when I was younger. I ended up getting it like when I was actually trying to complete the collection.
Now we want a full breakdown review on YouTube.
Yes, we do. Please.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, well, you know what? There's absolutely no footage for the game on YouTube, so maybe, I'll review the game. I'll be like, hey, I've never played this series or game before, and I'll see how it goes. Well, the thing is that we should bring up, it's a game that's highly focused on its multiplayer aspect, because I believe on the, what was it, up to 4 players co-op, I believe? It was like a gauntlet game, but with more, like, detailed cooperation, like you really had to work together more, right?
Yeah, it was one of the games that really sort of sold the whole Turbo Tap multiplayer thing, because that was a huge part of it. And
Sure.
if you need any reference material, Pete, I reviewed both of them in the series, 1 and 2.
I'll definitely check that out again.
Chris, I was going to ask
It's also on your DVD, Pete. So if you want to pop that in.
Yeah, definitely. I may have already watched it.
I was going to ask you, Chris, how many games were released total for Library in North America, including CDs?
It kind of depends who you ask. There's 137, 138, or 139. See, Bonk 3, Bonk's Big Adventure was released on Super CD and on chip, and a game called Jack Nicklaus Turbo Golf was released in CD and chip. And so if you consider those one game, then there were 137. If you consider those 2 separate games, there's 139. So I always say there's just a tiny bit under 140
How many
that were released.
Do you own all of them then?
I have all 139 American games, yeah.
And which ones are the most rare?
Well, you know what? Sometimes it flip-flops, because one game will all of a sudden be very sought after. But there's a couple that consistently are rare, and one is called Magical Chase, which I did do a review of. It lately, go on eBay, seriously, right now, if you're listening to this, type in Magical Chase. If it says PC Engine, don't look at that one. If there's an American version on there, I swear I've seen some for $600.
One just recently ended on eBay like a week or 2 ago. I think we were talking this on last week's show or off show. It was complete, with the outer box. I didn't see the ending price, but it went for at least $1,500.
Oh my god! And that's with the box.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, you want to know? That was the second most expensive game I bought in 2000. I paid 182 or 170 bucks. So I'm thankful I completed my collection when I did. Let me put it that way. That's one. The other one I can think of is a Super CD game called Dynastic Hero. It was a sort of it was another game in the whole what's that
Wonder
series? Wonder Boy.
Monster
and
World.
that's another one that seems to go for a lot of money. That's the one I spent the most on, and that was like 180 something I spent, and now that goes for a lot too. Those are probably the two that stick out. But I mean, Bonk 3, both versions of those tend to go for a lot. Super Air Zonk tends to go for a lot. I mean, some of the Dungeon Explorer 2, if you can find it. A lot of the last Turbo Chip games that came out, I don't think they made very many of, and a lot of the Super CD games, because again, how many people in America had the Turbo Duo and the Super System card? So I just don't think they pressed many of them. I'm not sure I did, that's just from what I'm noticing, a trend.
Very cool. Thanks, man. Johnny,
So hey, let's go back to. So I'm just getting us back on track here. Gamester, what are your favorite Turbo Grafx games? Do you have a game and a Japanese game? Or?
Probably for Japan, I probably have to the Street Fighter 2. I absolutely love that port. It's probably one of my favorite home ports of Street Fighter 2. To be honest with you, I think it's
Gamester?
Yeah.
Let me ask you something real quick about that. I was a little concerned because a Turbo Pad controller, for those out there who don't know, is like a Nintendo controller. It has two buttons, select and start. And when you're thinking of Street Fighter, you're thinking, well, how am I going to pull off, Street Fighter with only two buttons? You have to hit the select button to switch between punch and kick, stuff like that. I actually caught on to that pretty quickly and didn't have as much. I didn't think it would be as easy to pull off as it was. Did you find that you were able to do that pretty quick?
No, I was kind of like you. I caught on fairly quick. It probably took me a couple battles to get used to it, but I have actually a 6-button PC Engine pad, which I use to play, which is ideal to play that game for.
That's a good. I have the Avenue pad, which is just 3 buttons, but you still got to select between.
But obviously, when you're playing on like the PC Engine GT, which is a handheld version, kind of like the Turbo Express, you can't plug in that, so you have to use what you have. So it's not too bad. It's not too bad. As far as my favorite American Turbo Grafx 16 games, I agree with Chris. I think E's 1 and 2 are great. I like Kadash a lot. Yeah, and I really like.
Here's the slider trigger.
What's that?
Isn't that Working Designs?
It's Working Design, yeah. But so the port, the port of Arcade, which is a fantastic arcade port. I mean, it's just a good game. And then trying to think, I like the Bonk series a lot. I really like the platformer of Bonks. So those are my picks. How about you, Johnny?
Oh, you know it's going to be so easy for me. American would be East Books 1 and 2. Japanese would be East 4. That's what I actually say. And what's really cool is there was actually back in the day, there was a guy called Nightwolf, and big shout out to him if he's listening, which I'm probably sure he's not. But he actually translated East 4 and created a patch for it. So if you had the original game, you could put it in your computer, put in the patch, and combine them and burn a disc, and there you're playing East 4 in English, which was absolutely amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, just really briefly with me, because I'm sure all the listeners are like, why doesn't Pete talk about the Turbo Grafx? It's because, well, I was telling you guys before when we weren't recording that, I bought the Turbo Grafx a while ago because it was taking me a while to find one on eBay for a decent price. I got it, handful of games, just a few games, and it basically just sat in my room. I totally forgot all about it because if you ever try searching on eBay for Turbo Grafx games, they're pretty expensive to buy individual. There's certain games you can get pretty cheap, but I prefer, when I get a new system, I prefer to buy a lot first, a decent amount, like 10 to 20 games, just to get like a really nice head start. But the thing is, at the time also, I couldn't decide if I wanted to collect the cardboard boxes or if I just wanted to do the jewel cases. Hue card only was out of the question. I just couldn't do that. But I recently, when I discovered Chris's channel, it kind of really got me back into trying to search for Turbo Grafx games. And I've been on the lookout on eBay. And it's just Turbo Grafx collecting. I don't know. Maybe it's due to Chris's channel. Like it's so ridiculous right now. The prices that everything are going for like lots of games and just some of the more decent titles on the system. It's really expensive. So I only have a handful of games, so I really couldn't tell you guys my favorite or least favorite. However, there is one game that especially played just for this show because I heard that Chris and Johnny have two totally polar opposite opinions on this game, and that's Keith Courage in Alpha Zones. So I played this right before the show for like a good hour and a half. So I want you guys to, I guess Chris, go first. What are your opinions on Keith Courage? And well, first of all, just explain real briefly what kind of game it is, and just because a lot of people probably don't know like the gameplay mechanics behind it, and then just tell us why you hate that game so much.
Well, wait a minute.
That's awesome. He's totally setting him up there. That's awesome.
No, it's okay. Let me go on record as saying I don't hate Keith Courage. If you if you watch the review, a 2.5 out of 5 is not a bad, horrible rating. Right. In fact, I almost gave it a 3. But Keith Courage in Alpha Zones it's an action platform game. And it was, for those of you who don't know, it was the choice pack-in for the Turbo Grafx 16 all the way up through basically when the Turbo Duo came out. Because even when Bonk's Adventure came out and they were going to use that as their mascot, they marketed Bonk, but they only put that in with the Bonk superset. They continued to pack in Keith Courage with the basic set. So Keith Courage was pretty much their game that they were using, I guess, to showcase the system. And
I know I kind of put you on the spot. I should have reworded it. Why do you dislike?
He's walking on eggshells.
Game?
He's walking on eggshells.
It's okay. No, it's okay. That game gets the most for the 5 people that actually listen to the show and watch my show. That game gets the most controversy because I gave it a slightly below average rating instead of giving it a glowing review. And I think it's fun for about 2 stages, and then it's extremely repetitive. I think each level to me is the same, just slightly recolored. Buying things.
You're right. It absolutely is, and it has a repetitive nature to it.
It's repetitious in a Super Mario Brothers way, but Super Mario Brothers gameplay was more fun, and so there isn't any, and had so much more variety that, like, I don't know, so that's my biggest problem with the game is I think it's too repetitious. And when I first got my Turbo Grafx 16 and sat down and tore this game apart, I was so excited. Oh, here we go. I got my Turbo Grafx. Here we go. And this is the way I molded my review when I did it, was I was trying to take you back to when I was younger, and I made the leap from my Nintendo, and this is it. And at first, the character walks so slow, but you know what? The colors are nice, and it looks good, and it's kind of fun. And when he uses his sword, it goes pink, pink, and okay. But then he turns into the robot, and then it gets kind of cool, and he's that part's kind of neat. But then the second level started, and it was the same thing, and then the third level started, and I got to be honest, I was, even as a kid, disappointed. I might have given it a little bit more of a rating back then, but that was not getting me excited about the Turbo Grafx at all, and it should have. So That's just my take. Again, and let me just point out, my show is just that. It's a review show that I do, so it's my opinions, and I try to be very detailed in every review that I do, so that even if you don't agree with me, you can at least see where I'm coming from, and maybe you can make a decision as to what, I try to be respectful.
No, absolutely.
Definitely, yep.
Absolutely. Like, it's kind of funny, this rivalry thing. We were starting to have a little bit of fun with it, where I'd be defending Keith Courage with an iron fist, type of thing. But, no, I think what happened to me, which was different than you, I remember seeing it in magazines, and I looked at it, and I thought, this looks awesome. It looks good. And then I got my Turbo Grafx, and obviously I got Keith Courage, and I don't know, maybe I was easily pleased back then, because I felt like I was having an arcade look experience, not an arcade experience, but an arcade look experience at home for the very first time. And that's what the Turbo Grafx was for me at first. It's like, wow, I'm playing better games than the NES, so they all impressed me. All those early Turbo Grafx games impressed me, but I liked it. I liked it when you turn into the robot, and you're right, it definitely is repetitive, the same thing over and over, but it's got some magic to me. When I hear all that music, it really takes me back. I still see a lot of magic with Keith Courage, but I can see where a lot of people might be disappointed. But it was a free game. How could you be upset? When you buy your Turbo Grafx, you should also be buying another game, right? Absolutely. Sure. Legendary apps. You won't be upset then.
I can completely respect what you're saying. And again, I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. To me, a 3.5 is a recommended game. That's above average. So a 2.5 isn't really that far, and I almost gave it a 3. When I was younger, I probably would have given it a 3.5. So I liked it a little bit more when I was younger. But again, I still think, you got that whole, how do they call that, the rose-covered glasses or whatever? Because what something a lot of younger gamers today don't know about us old folks is that back in the day, anything that could replicate the arcade experience was king. That's what we were looking for. And a lot of people bust on Altered Beast and say, what a horrible game for a pack-in. And I say, yeah, but you know what? That game looked exactly like Altered Beast in the arcade. So whether you like the game or not, that was impressive as hell. And that said to me, the Sega Genesis could replicate the arcade experience. And when I looked at Keith Courage, I didn't see that. And I guess that was but also remember, Johnny, my next game was Alien Crush. So... which I liked quite a bit. So but no, I totally respect what you're saying, and I guess that's so.
Yeah, and you know what, I can, but I'm kind of like, I think what I want to touch on is that you're a young kid like me, and we were during that time just after the NES. So, wasn't everything impressive to you that was like possibly 16-bit or, that had that arcadey look? Wasn't it like, didn't you kind of at least look at the game and go, wow, I'm kind of just taken in by the look? No, eh? You were really judging it harsh back then, too.
I really didn't think it looked arcadey to me. I thought Keith Courage looked non-arcade. I don't know. I guess I just didn't see the arcadeness of it like you did. I mean, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why we may like some games, we may not, is, like Johnny hit on, was the nostalgia reasons for it, too. I'm curious, Pete, what was your opinion of playing it?
I popped it in today because Johnny told me about, you two had different opinions on it. And I went into it with, like, a fresh mind. I had played this game when I first got my Turbo Grafx, like, very, very briefly. And then I moved on to playing some R-Type. So I popped it in today. I didn't know what the heck I was getting myself into. And I'll have to say it starts off extremely weird because it's this really, really slow-paced platformer. You're this kid that, moves extremely slow with this little dinky sword. And you're in this town. You can enter the house. It's sort of like, in Zelda 2 on the NES. And they have weapon shops, and they have shops where you can heal yourself and buy, like, these weapon things that you can shoot out bombs. And when you get to the end of the stage, like you said, you go into the robot form, and it turns into, like, this totally different game. Very fast-paced, very challenging. The enemy patterns, they're pretty challenging because they keep sending wave after wave after you, and they actually track you on the screen. So it's really hard to dodge them. And basically you get to the end of the level and you fight a boss at the end, blah, blah, blah. So I got all the way to stage 4. I got to the stage 4 end boss. And that's when, just like Chris said, the game just got super repetitive for me. Like he said, in a lot of games we're guilty of doing this, kind of just reskinning itself with, the same enemy patterns, but they kind of just change the way they look a little bit. And it's such a weird gameplay mechanic. Basically, after you're out of, they call it the underworld, where you play as this robot with a sword, and you go back up to the overworld. And the strange thing about this is, in order to buy an upgraded sword and to heal yourself, you have to it's almost like an MMORPG today. You actually have to farm enemies for gold pieces in order to buy the equipment. So you actually don't get gold or anything in the dungeon or the underworld as the robot. You get it all in the overworld. So you basically, for 5 minutes, I would sit there on the same screen and just keep on going back and forth, killing these enemies over and over and over, farming for gold so I can buy a new weapon and heal myself. And I just thought it was such a weird addition to the game. It would be like if you're playing an old school Mario game and, instead of going from level to level, instead, you take 5 or 10 minutes to keep on jumping on Goomba's heads to get gold pieces to buy, a 1-up mushroom or something. Just think of that. It's just very, very strange. It's 2 totally different games in one. And I actually really enjoyed the robot sequences. I thought they were pretty fun. And like Johnny said, the music was actually really great. But by stage 4, I died, and I was like, you know what? I think I've gone further enough to kind of judge this game. So I think there's, only 7 levels, so I kind of made it more than halfway through the game, so.
Yeah. So do you agree more to Chris's opinion or Johnny's opinion, or do you have your own? What would you
I'm kind of halfway. It's hard for me because, I didn't play the game back when it was originally released, but playing it today, I'd say, for people that are buying Turbo Grafx, you're probably going to get the game for free anyway with the system if you're buying it on eBay. But I wouldn't really go out of your way to get it. It doesn't really, for me, it didn't really hold up by today's standards. it's a decent game if you can get it for a few bucks, but I wouldn't go out of your way to pick it up.
What worries me about it, and what I was worried about when I was younger, and again I had the opposite effect, is to me it's not a showcase piece, and I've gotten arguments on the other end, and Johnny and I were talking. Don't argue with anybody because it's not worth it, and he's right. But I've gotten arguments on the other end that NEC isn't going to put in a showcase piece with their console because they want to sell their showcase pieces like Blazing Lasers and Dungeon Explorer and Legendary Axe. They want to make money off of them, and I completely disagree with that, because to me, you want to include a showcase piece with your console because you want to sell consoles. You don't make money on the consoles, you make money on the software. And it's like, Super Mario Brothers for Nintendo, Donkey Kong for ColecoVision, those were their showcase pieces. And that helped get consoles into the home, And it's like, so to me, it's like I feel like it needed a showcase piece to get the consoles into the home. And that's where I think they made a mistake there.
That's a really good point.
But again,
that's a really good point. Absolutely.
So, Chris, I know we put this off for a while here, but why don't you tell people, I know you have a website, and you actually have a DVD out, which you're going to be putting out multiple volumes. I know I have the first volume. It's an excellent DVD, really well put together. Why don't you tell everybody about your website, your DVD, and go ahead with that.
Oh, sure. Well, the website is www.turboviews.com. I mean, it's a very simple website. It's kind of the second generation of it. It originally was just a splash page for the DVD sale. Now it kind of has, all the reviews kind of cataloged and links to all the YouTube, because they're all up on YouTube, obviously. It's a YouTube show. And it also has links to the channel so you can subscribe. And that's the best way to keep in touch with any of us is obviously to subscribe on YouTube, so you always get, you can leave comments and you can always be a part of the group. But if you search on YouTube, you can find me at Spida1A, SPIDA1A. Or like I said, go to turboviews.com and find the link. And I guess the goal of the series, which I started to make the goal about a dozen reviews in when I started to actually get some people that were interested in the whole thing, and they're actually the reason why I continued with it, is to eventually review all the American Turbo Grafx games. And we talked about how many there are earlier, and so I got about 100 left. I was just joking with Johnny that when I'm about 70 and I finish the series, it'll be a good day. But it's something that I wanted to start up because there wasn't very much information on the Turbo Grafx, and I felt that it deserved a little more recognition on the internet as far as YouTube videos and stuff like that. And that's kind of why I started the series. And when I got to about 25 reviews, American reviews, I had some people ask me if they could get high-quality copies, like on DVD, just because they wanted high-quality copies. I don't know how anybody could put up with me for one review, let alone want all 25. But I said, sure, because I saved high-quality versions for myself just off of my editing software. And so I went ahead and I created the DVD set, and then, of course, I did a little more with it. I added a bunch of special features. In fact, there's twice as much content, special features, as there are actual uploaded content as far as commentaries and all this stuff. As usual, I overdid it and made it more of a bigger deal. But I just made it available for anyone who was interested, and it ended up being a 3-disc set, and it has the first 25 reviews, has a couple import reviews, has a couple on-camera extra features, it has a bunch of special features and a whole bunch of music tracks on every one of the reviews, and I released it not quite last year, almost a year ago, and it's been getting great reviews, and people really seem to like it, and it's humbling, it's nice, because I didn't think I'd ever have, I think I have like 3,200 subscribers, and I never thought I'd have that many, and everybody out there who's a subscriber or a fan, I mean, it's just the best, and I appreciate that stuff.
When can we expect the volume 2? Do you have any idea when that might be out?
Well, hopefully by the end of the year. I guess if you buy the first volume, I made it kind of cookie cutterish, with the intention of, well, if I end up releasing them all, then in the end there's going to be about 6 volumes. And so I guess every 25 American reviews we release a new volume. So considering I just uploaded review 45, we're pretty darn close to finishing the next 25. So I'm hoping sometime by the end of the year to get Volume 2 out. And I was talking with Johnny. You were actually when you reviewed it, which was great. Thanks so much for your awesome.
Hopefully my audio is good here, but I got to say, Chris, and I really want to say this to everybody listening that, Chris hasn't paid me any money, just to get that out there, but I absolutely am one of the biggest supporters of what he's doing, and I think his reviews are fantastic. I think his DVD is nothing short of incredible. I'm so happy somebody's doing this, and you're doing it, and you're doing how many DVDs? It's going to be 6, right?
Well, I'm hoping in the end it'll be 6. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just the biggest, I can actually honestly say I'm the biggest fan of your show. I'm so excited when I see a new episode up on YouTube, and I've watched all the DVDs, and I love some of the extras you have in the DVDs where you have audio tracks talking about your experiences playing the game or when you first bought the game, and it's just totally awesome. So I forget what you're going to ask me, but I just wanted to gush and say I'm a super huge fan of the DVD in general.
Well, thanks so much. I do really appreciate it. And one of the things that you mentioned in your review was that it was fun kind of going along for the ride. And I guess that's kind of what I ask anybody who joins the series, either subscribing or whatever, is that, I'm just kind of going along for the ride. Some of the games I'm pretty familiar with, some of them I'm not, and I'm just kind of doing the best that I can and having fun. And I guess the DVD collection is the same thing. If you want to collect them all, great. I actually, if you know that I was telling you, Johnny, when we were talking on the phone, there's the Turbo Grafx 16 box. A friend of mine works for this DVD duplicator company, and he said when all 6 volumes are done, he's going to make me a special cardboard box to hold securely all 6 DVDs. And on the other side, it's going to look like the Turbo Grafx 16 original box, the orange and everything.
That's
and
awesome.
In the middle, it's going to have Turbo views instead of Turbo Grafx. So it'll be so when Volume 6 is done in 25 years. We will release a box that you can buy for the whole set. It's funny looking back that far. I mean, literally, I don't know how long it's going to take when life takes over and I can't get to the controls. I have to put things on hold, So who knows? Yeah. But I appreciate it. It's humbling. And
when you do finish it and you have that box set, and one day when I own it, I will weep like a small girl holding that because it's part of my generation. Right, it's definitely part of a lot of our generations, and it's wonderful that you're doing it. I just think it's awesome, and I can't wait. It's a long way away, I know, but I know, Chris, that you will finish it, and you're doing a heck of a service just for the Turbo Grafx fans out there. It's awesome.
Well, thanks very much, and it's been great because the subscribers are either Turbo Grafx fans or they're because the Turbo Grafx has been released on Wii Virtual Console also. There's a lot of games available on there, and some of the people that watch are also people who have the Wii, and they're interested to see if that game is available and whether they should download it. And sometimes I have some new gamers that are just interested in retro gaming, and sometimes I get just people that like videos. I try to put a lot of work into them, and I think some people can, appreciate that too, which is nice. Sure. And I don't know, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and you guys are just the best.
And then that's what's so cool is, you are bringing in a new audience to a system that was very, not many people knew about, and it's wonderful to be able to tell people about it now. I try to do that with my channel, but your channel is, directly, that's what you were trying to say, and that's what's so great about it. Definitely.
Chris, I have a question for you. Obviously, you're passionate about the Turbo Grafx 16. Are there any other consoles that you would like to mention while you're here on the show that you like to play, or whether it's current or old? Or...
Well,
he's locked up in his room all day. He only plays the Turbo Grafx.
Yeah. I actually don't. You know what? I'll tell you what. My show focuses on the Turbo Grafx 16, but I was a hardcore gamer back then. So make no mistake. I mean, I had the Atari 2600 first. I had the Nintendo Entertainment System. I had the Game Boy. Turbo Grafx was next. I ended up getting the Genesis and Sega CD, got the Super Nintendo, PlayStation, N64. I think around the N64 PlayStation, that's when I slowly started getting out of games a little bit, and I became more of a casual gamer. But I have all those consoles downstairs. I got a lot of other games, too. So when I think of the Turbo Grafx was a huge part of... Yeah.
Sorry, I was just cutting in there. What made you become a casual player at that point when the N64 came out? Like, what was the change from being hardcore as a kid to kind of getting casual later on? What happened there?
Well, there are a couple things that I can, if I'm looking back on my old age, there's a couple things I can pinpoint. One was college, and I was in a very serious relationship. I was about to get married, and a couple things in my life took precedent, and I think that was a part of it. Also, I'll be completely honest, and I don't want to get attacked here, but I did not get into the 3D world of gaming as much as everyone else. And so when things became more 3D, I still really liked them. I mean, the original 3D game, I mean, I could play Mario 64, and I could play Resident Evil and Tomb Raider and Medieval and Crash Bandicoot. I could play those like crazy, but I kind of got away from it around that time. I was more of a 2D person, and I think when 3D came along, I lost a little bit of interest. I've gained more interest now that I think it's been a lot more perfected now, and I enjoy it a lot more now. I think I'm becoming more of a gamer now than I have been for the last probably 15 years. But that's probably one of my main reasons, and it's not an attack on anything. It's just me, I just, for some reason, I didn't get as much into it. I don't know.
All right, cool. And also, on your channel, you also tend to feature a lot of pinball videos. Why don't you tell us about your pinball collection?
Pinball is another passion of mine that I can't explain how that has got out of control. When I originally started my channel, it was to house my 2 pinball reviews. I did one on Family Guy, and I did one on a special game I had made for me called Big Bang Bar. And that was the reason I started my YouTube channel, a long time before Turbo Views came along. And I only had those couple videos up for a long time. And so a lot of my early subscribers were pinball people who wanted more pinball stuff. And since I was moving to New York, and my games had to be put in storage, I thought now would be a good time to shoot some segments quickly of my games, so that I have them, and I can also, put some more stuff up there for the people who wanted pinball. And so I took my little microphone and I stood there over the course of 2 days and I shot these segments. I didn't get to all of them, but I decided to put the segments up.
So hey guys, I just want to say that sorry for the the buzzing that you might hear, because we actually have 5 people now with us, and we have a special guest who is actually Luke Morse. And for anybody who doesn't know Luke, he actually has a really awesome YouTube channel, which you can check out at Luke Morse 1 on YouTube. So, Luke, awesome to have you, man.
Hey, what's up? Back again, Luke here. Nice to be on. Thanks again.
Nice.
Thanks for the invite.
Well, what's really cool is we're talking about the Turbo Grafx, and we're talking about the PC Engine. And it's so great that you actually showed up. We just want to kind of ask you, what's your take on the PC Engine and how big it was in Japan? That's a huge question, I know.
Well, listeners should know also that Luke actually lives in Japan, so he's definitely the one to go to when it comes to the PC Engine.
Yeah, right. Well, as far as me, like when I was growing up, I never really had a lot of chances to play the PC Engine because they were so scarce and expensive back in the States. But coming out here to Japan, it just kind of blew my mind as to how many PC Engines, different varieties of the system you could find, and how many games were readily available. I mean, it's extremely popular here in Japan. Even till this day, there's still a lot of games that go for high prices out on Yahoo auctions or eBay. So, yeah, the PC Engine really hit well here in Japan, and it's still continuing strong.
Wow.
Amazing.
And is the PC Engine still pretty expensive in Japan? Can you go to like Hard Off and find it pretty cheap, or?
You know what you can do? You can find the interface units for somewhat reasonable prices, but most of the time they're going to be separated. They're not going to have the CD2 drive attached to them. It's just going to be the PC Engine core system. And you can find the interface units, just the platform itself, but you can't find any attachments for it. 9 out of 10 times, even if you do find the CD-ROM 2 drive for it, those gears that are on the inside of them, they have a tendency to break down, and the plastic just dissolves. So the CD-ROM 2 drives are usually 90% broken. And a lot of people don't know how to fix them here, as well as a lot of people don't spend the time to fix them. But when you start looking at things like the Turbo R or the Duo R, you're definitely looking at a lot of money. Those things are still going for well over $200 or so here used on the auctions. So,
Luke, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Why do you feel that the PC Engine was so successful in Japan and that the Turbo Grafx 16 failed? I wouldn't necessarily say failed, but wasn't as successful in North America.
I think, what it all comes down to with a lot of these game machines is the advertising. I think that here in Japan, when something new comes out, people flock to it. And they don't even have to advertise it really a lot. I mean, people hear through it through forums, large groups here, and there's a huge gaming society in Japan. And people find out about it, and they just rush to buy them. Whereas back in the States, if we don't hear about it through some sort of advertising, whether it be on TV, radio, or something like that, we just never know about it. So I think that was probably one of the biggest things. Also, with the PC Engine games, a lot of them were in Japanese. And probably about the time that it came out, sadly enough, in Japan, Japanese is pretty much the strongest language here, and English is almost not heard of, except for the few English words they throw in here and there. So trying to translate big RPG games and things like that, it's pretty hard. It's a long task, and I don't think that they were really up for it at the time.
Sure. We all kind of mentioned before in this podcast, we mentioned our favorite PC Engine game, and we mentioned our favorite Turbo Grafx 16 game. Do you have one top of mind?
Well, I do love Kadash. That's why I have Kadash, the PC Engine, and I also have it for the arcade. It's a good favorite. I also like the Ninja Gaiden, Shinobi. I love a lot of the classic games that were on the PC Engine. Castlevania Rondo of Blood, that's got to be one of my favorites as well. I love the soundtrack.
Oh, definitely. That was one of the ones when they asked me that I put up there, too, for my favorite PC Engine. That was actually the first game that I imported, because I just was a huge fan of that whole series, and I couldn't believe that there was one out there that we didn't have,
Right. And, it must have cost an arm and a leg, I'm sure, to import it.
Yeah. They asked me that, and I don't remember. I know it wasn't cheap.
I think I paid about $130 for my first copy, and I was lucky enough to get my second copy for about $70. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. What would you? Sorry, Luke. What would you think your American Turbo Grafx favorite game is? Like just U.S. release.
When I saw the Turbo Grafx and when it first came out, the one game that I really wanted to play when I was younger was Bonk's Adventure, and Keith Courage. I wanted to give those a shot, but I never had the opportunity to.
So we were having a huge debate, me and Chris, earlier on about Keith Courage, and I really like the game, and he's a little bit more lukewarm to it. No pun intended. What do you think of Keith Courage?
Yeah,
I
don't mind
Courage.
I don't mind the game at all. I think it's a pretty good game. What do you think makes it lukewarm?
We've already
When's
covered
this podcast going to be up?
Oh, okay. Well, no need to go back there. So.
Well, because it was funny. We had a little discussion. I was telling my opinion, and then Johnny told his opinion, and then Pete actually played it before he went
before
on.
the show.
So we're sort of before the show, just so he could give his. It was kind of fun. So yeah.
Nice. Pete, what was your take on it?
Just in a nutshell, because it was the first time I ever played it, I thought it was just a very, very strange game design, because it was like the overworld was so much different from the underworld. And like Chris brought up a good point. He said that after a while, it was like they were just reskinning the same level over and over, and that's kind of what I felt. I didn't get to the end. I got to the level 4 boss, and then I kind of just gave up and figured that I basically played as much as I could of the game. I mean, it was decent.
Yeah.
Going to it today, having never played it before, it was just decent. It's nothing. I wouldn't rant and rave about it. Maybe if I had played it, back when it was originally released, I would have been a little bit more excited for it.
Yeah, there's no question. I definitely liked it more when I was younger because I got a new system, and what's more exciting than that, So, so I guess I was trying to find a balance between then and now. I don't know. But like I said, I didn't hate the game.
Yeah, I kind of poorly worded it at first. Like I put him on the spot. Like, so I heard you hate this game. So yeah, that was.
Well, no, Well, it's like a friendly ribbing now, because even in my review for Pac-Land, I made a little rib to the Keith Courage fans. Just so it's all in fun now. I don't know.
Yeah, see, I even have some problems with Pac-Land, for the Pac-Land game. That's something I got issues with.
Yeah. Before we go on from there, Luke, what was the history of Keith Courage? Isn't it known as like Wataru in Japan? Am I pronouncing that right? It's like an anime. Yeah.
Right, based on an old anime series here in Japan. And that's one thing that you'll find a lot of the Japanese games here and the ones that get imported over to the States is that a lot of them were based off of old Japanese anime. So
yeah, like Blazing Lasers. Wasn't that, was it Gunhit?
I think it is.
Yeah, you might.
Yeah.
Because because I remember when I did that review, I was researching it, and it was funny. I'm pretty sure it was based on a show called Gunhead, and then if you look in the American manual, the name of the ship is still called Gunhead. That's the only part that's retained from when it came out.
Right. Here, yeah. Well, here in Japan, they have a tendency to change the names and stuff, and they do it on everything, games, movies, and it is so hard to try and find one of these old games that you used to play back home, because the name is totally different.
Yeah, well, I'm just going back to Keith Courage again, and Wataru I remember Grands on the Super Graphics. Wasn't that Wataru as well? I'm putting on the spot, I'm guessing here.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Alrighty, hey guys, Pete here, and I just wanted to interrupt really fast because if you guys didn't notice, we were having some technical difficulties with the audio there, with some echoing, so we had to take a break real quick and fix that. So I'm going to resume this here where Luke is talking to Chris about his pinball collection. So thank you for your understanding, and here we go.
No, you have a fantastic collection. I'm just curious how big of a place you got to fit those pinball machines, because last time I checked, those things are massive. It's like putting coffins in the house.
Yeah, pretty much. They're quite a big footprint. It's just one of those things. In the place my old place before I moved, I just pretty much took up the basement, and it just kind of slowly started to creep out from the basement room into the basement, and then it crept out even more, and then all of a sudden, we don't need that table there, we'll get rid of that, and this water heater, do we really need that? So, when you have the sickness, you find room. I mean, I've had about 50 some games over the years come and go, and right now I have around 21 of them. And a couple project games, but I recently moved, and that's what I was talking about before you came on. We were kind of just discussing the collection. I recently moved all the games into storage, and I shot all that what you saw of the games I shot before I put the games away, so I could put some stuff up for the pinball fans out there. So.
Right, Chris, you're gonna die, man. I was on the auctions the other day, and I found a Super Mario Brothers pinball machine in mint condition here. And it was going for $200.
Oh, really?
And I bid it. I put a bid in for it, and I lost the bid by was it $20? The thing wound up selling for $320.
Oh man! Most of the Gottlieb Premier games from that time don't really fetch very much money anyway. But that's a hell of a deal, and that's a good game. That's actually one of the. I'm not as big a fan of that company, but that's actually one of their. I like that game a lot. Oh man, that sucks.
I just love the look of it. It just looked really. I mean, it was all Super Mario. There was no, mistaking it. It was just great.
They did a great job with the theme, the sound effects and everything. I mean, everything's just spot on with that game.
Where do you find your games, Chris? I know. Do you go to Craigslist, or where do you? What's the best tool that you use?
I've never used Craigslist to find a game. I've never used eBay. I've actually tried, some of them are people I know. Obviously, I've been collecting for a long time. I go to conventions, shows. I know a lot of people, so sometimes I'll just there's a pinball news group out there, Rec Games Pinball, that, everybody kind of hangs out at. I don't read it as much as I used to, but I'll put feelers out there. And there's also a Mr. Pinball is a website that has a classified section. And the reason I usually send people to Mr. Pinball is because a lot of the collectors put stuff up there. And if you're going to get into pinball, especially early on, it's probably good to buy it from a collector who has taken care of their games because it's a lot of work. I mean, it is. They're always breaking. I mean, pinballs are meant to last 5 years, and then they're supposed to die so that the next person, so that the operator will buy a new one. You know, that's the whole point. And so the electronics and stuff, some of them last longer than, I mean, it always needs constant stuff. And, I mean, so I tend to buy from collectors. I pay the premium, though. I like to do the work on them, so I'll buy them sort of in the middle, and then I'll kind of tear them apart and put in the hours and make them sort of my own, you know. But they're all, if you've watched my pinball videos, it's kind of similar to Turbo Grafx. And Johnny, you and I were talking about the memories and the nostalgia with this stuff. I mean, that's the reason I started collecting pinball. It was all the stuff I grew up with. And so whenever I do any video on anything, it's mostly stuff that tugs at the heartstrings a little bit. And most of my collection, if not all of it, is games I grew up with of some kind or another. And, you know.
What? Because I'm in the
Yeah, there's one review I love that there's one review I love that you did, that Castle one. What was the name of it?
Medieval Madness.
Medieval, sorry, yeah. I saw that and I was like, that really got me into pinball. That got me into pinball because I wouldn't say I'm a huge pinball fan, but I saw that and it actually made me become a pinball fan, honestly. Really, it was cool.
Yeah, that was Williams pinball just ruled the world for a long time once the solid state era hit. And Medieval Madness was kind of one of those late games that came out that was a very big success, but a very big success in a small way because pinball was just starting to fall apart at that point. You know, arcades were closing all over the world. Things were just changing, and Williams closed 2 years later. So, you know, it was one of those, but it's an immense collectible. Everybody wants that game, and that is, like you said, Johnny, at that time, late 90s, that's one of the games, if people were playing pinball, they were usually playing that one and maybe Attack from Mars and some of those games around that time.
Right.
So, and that's always a favorite of mine.
It's you know, I'm in the market for a pinball. I think that's my next big purchase. But you know, I'm finding that they're not cheap at all. I mean, you're looking to spend over $1,000 for a machine. Yep. You know, a decent machine. Right. You know, so
it all depends on the game, the year, the condition. I mean, I got lucky because one of my other hobbies from before the pinball one exploded kind of paid for my pinball hobby when I sold it off. So I was sort of invested in a way and was able to increase my pinball hobby as a result of selling off some Transformers action figures. So that's a whole other part of my life for another YouTube channel. I had like 3/4 of the Generation 1 figures sealed. I mean, I was a huge collector, and then they exploded, and I sold a lot of them, and that helped fuel a lot of things.
What caused the figures to go up in value? Like, was it because of the release of the films, or what was it?
This is actually mid-'90s to late '90s, and what I noticed happening was it seemed like there was a series called Beast Wars that came out that kind of rekindled things a tiny bit. It actually became popular as it got along, and the figures started coming out. But what I noticed is things like eBay started coming out, and now the action figure collectors started collecting, and all of a sudden I noticed the prices just go through the roof. I mean, I had I don't know if you know the old characters. I had a sealed Prowl that was from the very first year. I mean, I had all the first year cars sealed, and the American sealed cars were in boxes, and they had blister packs inside. So if they were sealed, they were really sealed. There was no styrofoam in those things, you know. And I had one of them, and I paid, I think in 1994 when I started collecting, I paid like $40 or $50 for it, and not even. And I sold it on eBay for $720.
What?
Something like that.
Serious?
Now that was an extreme example. You know, they weren't all like that. But that's what ended up happening. And what I found is I started to become an anal completist collector, and instead of collecting for nostalgic reasons, I collected to complete everything. And when I finally saw the prices, I said, you know what, I love my pinball stuff. I want to do more with that. So I kind of filtered the money over. But that's,
sure.
I still have a lot of the figures I just couldn't sell. I still have my Megatron in the box. I just can't sell them. Back in the old days.
That's really cool story. I never knew that.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, Megatron, the old Megatron came with turned into a Walther P38, which looked pretty realistic, and then it came with a silencer and a scope, so you could walk around school and try to shoot your teachers and with a silencer.
And I'm sure if kids brought something like that to school today, they'd get them expelled. Like, it's ridiculous. A kid brings a toy soldier to school and gets expelled. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no question about it. It's definitely a different time,
It's funny. Great story, Chris. Great story.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go off in a different world there, but that was
awesome. That was interesting.
A totally different time.
Going back to the...
Go ahead, Luke.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just thinking, going back to like how you were talking about repairs and things on those pinball machines. I was just wondering if John, you ever got that Star Wars cab up?
Oh, no, I'm trying. Yeah, that requires I need a vector monitor board.
Right.
And it's like really rare to find those things, unfortunately, and I've been searching for one. So we'll see.
The Star Wars one you were talking about, and the one didn't you talk about that in one of the segments? I think, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a review on it earlier on my channel, and it was one of my favorite arcade games. I love that game, and fortunately I got a good deal on the cab. I just couldn't pass it up. So I mean, the board works. It plays blind, unfortunately, but I just need to get that. So any of those listeners listening out there, if you guys know where I can find a vector monitor board, please throw me a bone.
That's a great game. Love that game.
I'd love to see that cab up and running.
Yeah, dude, that makes two of us, man, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey Johnny, what did you? One of my favorite videos of yours is actually back to Transformers. Is the Transformers collector set that you got?
Yeah, that was a hell of a set.
Did you guys pick that up at all?
I got it after I watched your review because I hadn't purchased it till I watched your because I had the original Rhino releases and I didn't want to trade up originally, but after seeing your review, I decided to crack at it.
Yeah,
those things.
It's funny.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Go for it, Pete.
No, I was just going to cut in real fast and say those Rhino releases, because I remember back when there was a point where I never watched Transformers as a kid. It just was one of those shows that kind of passed me by. And then years later, I actually watched some on YouTube, and I really enjoyed the show. Like, having never watched it as a kid, I actually found myself really enjoying it. And at the time, the only DVD release for it was the Rhino collection. And man, were the prices on that ridiculous. Like, I'm talking like $100, $200 for like a single set. So I was just going to ask you, when you sold them, Chris, did you get like a fair chunk of change for them?
I actually didn't sell them. I still have those because once that new set came out and people were saying, it's the original mono track. They didn't mess with it. It even looks better. I think people started all of a sudden the prices for the Rhino sets kind of went.
Right.
So I still have the Rhino collection at home, but the collector set that Johnny reviewed is man, it's so cool the way it's the Matrix and it opens up, and man, they did a lot of great stuff with that, man.
I spent a lot of money because I got these shout-out packs. What was it? What the heck is it? The shout-out packs or whatever it was released. I ordered it directly from them, and it was like $140 for that and the G.I. Joe box set.
Pete, you were talking about. It's funny how now we're getting onto something that is not even.
It's totally cool. That's the point of this podcast, where the conversation.
All right, excellent. Well, you were saying that you watched the Transformers and found it watchable, and it's funny. Being somebody who grew up with these 80s cartoons and early 90s cartoons, I watch some of them now and I have a difficult time with it, But at the same time, I still find Transformers pretty watchable. Even today, it's still, I still can sit down and watch it. And, Real Ghostbusters, another one. I really like.
The Real Ghostbusters, yeah.
The writing in the Real Ghostbusters is so witty, especially the first syndicated season and stuff. It's just I love it. So, and,
that was great. I like the toys for Real Ghostbusters too. I thought that was a good line of toys too. And the whole the car and the characters as well growing up. So,
John, you must have that whole collection by now, don't you?
What's that? The Ghostbusters?
Isn't it any collection? I thought anything that ever came out. Don't you have it somewhere?
I have a few figures laying around still, but yeah, it's not. Who's a big one? TV and Les Craig is a huge Ghostbusters fan. And he has probably a complete collection of that. So,
well, I'll tell you that the real I got the how they released Time Life released the whole collection on DVD.
Yeah.
And I got it for I didn't ask for it, but somebody must have heard me ramble on about it in my family because I got it for Christmas, and it's the firehouse set, you know, with the steel books and the whole deal.
Yeah.
Dude, it's awesome. And now well, at the time, you know, it was like Time Life wanted, you know, it was almost $200 by the time you paid shipping, and now Amazon and some of those places have it, and it's actually pretty reasonable if you look in the right place. You can get it for a little over $100, and it's a sweet set. It's really nice.
That's great.
Yeah. I used to have that G.I. Joe, the whole Tetra, what was that thing called? The whole base when I was younger?
Terradrome.
Yeah, that was massive, you know? I used to love that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Hey, Luke's going to ask you. I'm sorry to interrupt, guys, but I was going to ask Luke something real quick. But I know Johnny and I were talking the other day about animation and anime, whatever, cartoons. But are you familiar with Star Blazers?
I've heard of it, but not super familiar. Oh,
it's
Yamato. Space Cruiser Yamato.
Yamato. Yeah. Right.
Yamato. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, we're butchering the name, of course, in Japanese, but
that's okay.
They're coming out with a movie, a live action movie. I saw a trailer to in Japan, and I'm that kicks ass, dude. I saw that. I'm like, dude, I have to get Luke to like send me a copy or something of that, and you know, or something, or do a review.
Yeah, sure.
That looked awesome. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that review?
Yeah. In fact, here there's a couple more of the old the old anime series that they're making movies of, and I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but they're starting to go back to some of these older anime series, and they're redoing them. Yeah, so there's going to be a couple more that are coming out, and as soon as I know the names of them, I'll let you know. But it's a lot of stuff to look forward to.
Absolutely. Well, they're doing the similar thing here with Transformers and G.I. Joe. Unfortunately, wasn't a very good movie here, in my personal opinion. But I like Transformers a lot. Megan Fox was fun to look at.
Yeah. What was your take on Transformers 2?
I thought it was okay. I liked the first one a lot better.
That's what I thought too.
I thought the same thing. You know what? I still like the second one. I mean, it's almost an overblown, crazy mess, but I still really liked it. But you know what I loved about the first one was there were so many wonderful scenes in it that were very, very real and great. And that the second one really didn't have as many like memorable scenes, you know.
Right, because the first one. Yeah, the first one had that whole wind up and suspense, you know, where you know it's like, okay, what's the Camaro gonna do? Why, you know, when are we gonna see the robots, you know? And it just kind of built up to it. Some of the lines were cheesy though, you know. It's like, you're more than meets the eye, you know, and it's like, oh, come on.
I'll be honest with you. Hopefully my audio's okay. I hated the first movie. I hated it. Didn't like the second movie either. I hated those movies so badly.
I never saw the second, but I actually really enjoyed the first one. It's just like an action movie, and you know, maybe I didn't have much to base it on because, like I said, I didn't really watch the original series. But just as an action movie for me, it was great.
Now I went in with my Autobot Decepticon blinders. I was ready to pick it apart, you know, as anybody else who's, you know, like my friends who are giant Star Trek fans who went into the new Star Trek movie and were ready to just hate it. And the first time I watched it, I liked Transformers, but I was like, well, I'm not sure. And so I went to see it a second time, and it's funny. The second time I saw it, I saw the nods that they made to the original fans that I didn't see the first time because I was looking for them. You know, it's like if they made a Transformers movie for the Transformers fans, it would not be what it is now. You know, they made a movie for the mass populace.
Right.
And that's why it's such a huge success. If they made them for just the fans, it would have fizzled away. That's my opinion.
A lot. I mean, they're just trying to keep these old images and these old ideas alive for the new generations, but they have no clue what the older stuff was all about. That's just it. So they want to, you know, keep them interested in the title or the theme or the idea, but when it goes back to its roots, it's just not the same, right?
Peter Cullen showed up as the voice of Optimus Prime, and I almost peed.
Yeah, that was good.
Because I met him at a convention one time when I was collecting. You know, I went to a BotCon. It was a Transformers convention.
Yeah, BotCon. I heard that.
And I only went to one of them, but it was the year that they had like some guests, and one of the guests was Peter Cullen, and he went up there, and when he first did, he did Optimus Prime's voice, and then he did Ironhide's voice, and we all just applauded and freaked out. It was the coolest thing I ever heard.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I mean, yeah. The voice actors, they make the game or they make the movie, right? Like, for example, like with Gears of War, like you go into newer generation games. I love the voicing for Gears of War because it was just so, it's got that deep, like, oh, I'm a hard guy kind of voice. You know, it's not this wimpy, like, oh, hi, yeah, here, let's shoot some bad guys, you know?
So they don't do the voiceovers in Japan, then it's all subtitled?
They do voiceovers, and I tell you what, they're horrible. The voiceovers here are so bad because they don't use professional voiceovers here. What they do is they use regular TV talents. And these TV talents have sometimes little, if no, skill. And so they're just going in there like, and things like that, but it just sounds cheesy and lame. They all sound the same.
You know, Luke, something that's really funny about that is, at least everybody here in America, especially with RPGs, it's so funny. Like, all the time, everybody in America complains about the American voice acting, and they're like, just put on, you know, the Japanese dub and everything. It's so much better. And then you come on here and you're like, the Japanese dub's voiceovers are just terrible, and us here in America, we think they're, like, amazing.
Well, here's the thing. If it's a naturally, it's a native game that's made in the States, I don't think it should be transferred over into Japanese. I don't think they should voice over it in Japanese. Same thing. If it's a game that's made in Japan, I don't think they should redub it in English, you know? It should stay in that country and keep it that country's language because it's a little bit better. When it's Japanese, Japanese idea, Japanese animation, Japanese characters with Japanese voices, it can sound fantastic. But then when, you know, they try and transfer that image over into English, yeah, it's horrible. I mean, look at the CDI and some of the sound effects that they did for Zelda. I mean, and some of the voices, you know. Those things from the beginning, I know they were in English, but those probably could have been done better in Japanese, I'm guessing, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Let's go get us some bongos, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, that was brutal.
You just want to beat him down. It's like you lose our respect for Zelda, for Link, you know? It's like, man, I used to like playing the Zelda games back in the day, but not anymore.
Well, hey, Johnny, I mean, let's face it, Johnny, the early Turbo Grafx CD games, man, that voice acting, man,
Oh my God. Final Zone 2 and Last Solar Day.
Wow.
I saw your review on that.
That was hilarious.
It was.
But I actually love those games. That's what's funny. They were bad, but good, yeah.
You almost controlled it back then, I think.
That's what I wanted to know. You know, why don't these game companies actually take regular guys like you, me, all of us off the street who really have a strong desire to play these games with some good, you know, voice acting, and get some random people that you don't have to pay a lot of money to but have the heart, and get them to do the voices for it. You know, they would tear it up. Why spend money on these overpaid people in the first place to do a really bad job on these voice acting jobs and then, you know, try and pass the game off? It's just, I don't know.
Sure. There's a lot of young actors that will work for free as well, right? They'd love to get a chance to do that, for sure.
Right.
That would be fun. I'd love to do that.
Right.
That's really great.
Hey, this is off topic again, but kind of back on topic. Here's one for you guys. Were you guys big G.I. Joe fans? Like, I'm talking about the original G.I. Joe.
Of course. I was.
Yeah.
And the animated show as well, right?
I was more into He-Man, but I was more into He-Man growing up. Probably my favorite show, but I like Joe. G.I. Joe a lot. Yeah.
He-Man.
Right.
It might be a surprise to you guys, but my favorite cartoon back then was the Sonic cartoon. So, I mean, thanks for there. You know, I love that show.
But there's Sonic yet.
He-Man was awesome. Yeah.
The only reason why I'm bringing it up, do you guys remember the G.I. Joe animated movie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Cobra.
Yeah, Cobra, and the Sega, Cobra la 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 la, yeah. Well, it actually came out last week on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And mine's still shipping from Amazon. I think it arrived today. Gotta pick it up from the post office, but that's huge. Who would have ever thought that movie would end up on Blu-ray? It was pretty cool.
Wow.
So can't wait to see it.
I like that movie.
Before you know, they'll have Masters of the Universe in Blu-ray.
They probably will. They probably will.
Start bringing back the old ones like Rocky and Bullwinkle and all sorts of old Pink Panther
how about
stuff.
the Smurfs Blu-ray? I'm sure they'll be.
Oh,
They're coming out with. Speaking of Smurfs, they're coming out with a live-action movie.
Movie.
It's gonna be hilarious. It's like a live-action. It's called like Smurfed or something like that, or you know.
Oh man. Is it going to be anything like the Street Fighter live-action movie or what?
I know, seriously, right? they're bringing back, and this is kind of true with both movies and video games. There's a lot of bringing back a lot of games that are like really hitting home with like people our age, which is great. I mean, they're bringing.
There's just a lot of just this nostalgia stuff just coming back. I mean, even I got my midnight showing ticket for the Expendables, and that's just a throwback to 80s and 90s action movies. Stallone even said he was making an old action movie, no CGI, real people and doing stunts and explosions, and I'm thinking, boy, that would be a nice treat for the eyes. I think I'm really looking forward to that. So I don't know.
And they're making remakes of Donkey Kong Country. They're making GoldenEye's coming out again for gaming. I mean,
really? Wow.
Yeah. You didn't hear about that? Yeah.
Isn't there a Castlevania game coming out for Xbox Live?
Yeah, it actually comes out tomorrow. Actually tonight at like 6:00. Thanks for reminding me.
Wow.
4-player online co-op. Can't wait.
Pete, do you want to do that tomorrow night?
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll definitely.
Yeah, I'll join up on that. Yeah.
And not wait for them.
Great.
Well, I guess getting back onto the subject of games, let's start with our guests here. Let's talk about just briefly like the games that we've been playing recently. So, Chris, have you been playing any games recently at all?
Yeah, Super Mario Galaxy 2. I have been. I played the living hell out of the original, and when the second one was coming out, I had it pre-ordered, and I haven't played any games there was a long break. I got it, and then I played the snot out of it, and then there's a break, and now I'm starting to play it again. But that one, Mario Galaxy 2, I'm pretty hooked on now.
They did so much right with that game. I absolutely loved it. So much more than the first one. I mean, I thought, because, when all you guys heard that they were bringing out Mario Galaxy 2 and you saw the videos, it basically looked like, the exact same thing as the first one. But, when I played it, it was just so much more than the first one. They completely balanced out the power-ups. Yoshi was one of the greatest additions they could have done. I mean, I'm still more of a fan of Mario 64, but Galaxy is just an unbelievable series.
It's really good.
Yeah. I've been meaning to check that out. I haven't picked it up yet, but it's my to-get list for sure.
Yeah. Now, real quick, has anybody out there played, speaking of Transformers, anybody played that new Transformers game? Because I've heard good things about it.
I have. It's really good. It's really good.
Now, actually, Johnny, did you play the single player or the online? Because I've actually been really interested in getting it. I tried the demo for the online, and I absolutely loved it.
I played a single player and I loved it. I actually talk about it in a new Game Stuff episode that I'm actually doing, and it's just, what can I say? It feels right. When you transform in the game, it looks good and it feels right. Like if you're in robot mode and you're shooting your gun, it makes sense for you to do that. But if there's a large group of enemies, Pete, you probably know this. And, I was playing Megatron at the time. I could transform into the tank mode, use my cannon, and blow up a large group of enemies. So transforming makes sense in the game.
And it's such a seamless transition. Like, it's not like, you can be running and you transform, and, the animation is just perfect.
It's perfect, yeah. I love the transformation.
Okay, so, in other words, put that on my eye right now.
Definitely for a Generation 1 fan, which I definitely am as well, you can't go wrong. It's really good.
Great, okay.
How about you, Luke? What have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing kind of the old classics still. I was playing some Demon's Blazing the other night, and or Demon's Crest for the Super NES. And I've been playing around with these arcade boards. I got a couple of broken arcade boards in, and one of them is another Double Dragon 2 board, which still doesn't work. I got 2 bad Double Dragon 2 boards. I can't believe it. And I got Gun Force, which isn't starting up, and I'm trying to play around with those. But I've also been playing the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the arcade. Just having some fun with that. Yeah.
Classic.
What about you, Gamester?
I've been traveling like crazy. I'm in Omaha this week, and then last weekend I was at the Classic Gaming Expo in Vegas. So
why don't you take this time to just tell us a little bit about the Classic Gaming Expo. You ran into someone really cool there. Why don't you tell us about that?
Oh yeah, I got a pretty crazy story for you guys. Yeah. So it was smaller than I thought. It was actually really fun. They had Chris, you'd be happy. Turbo Grafx was well represented at the. Awesome. They had quite a few games. I picked up, like I was mentioning before, I picked up Galaga 90 for $15. I got it complete with box and everything, which is it's a great game for the Turbo Grafx.
That's a really good game, yeah.
I like that port. They had a lot of Jaguar games and a lot of Lynx games. I was really surprised. But basically, there was an expo, and then they had some guests from it was more retro stuff. So I think the most modern system they had there was probably like PS1, and they had a really cool museum part, which is really cool. So they showed like the history of all the games and consoles, and I have a video review coming up on my channel. I should hopefully have up soon regarding that, which is cool. And did some arcade cabs, but which was really trippy for me was I had probably maybe a dozen people come up and recognize me from my channel, and which is really great. I love when people come up and they're like, "I love the show." But I had this kid and his dad like, "Can I have your autograph?" And it was cool. But it was.
And also, there were only 1,000 people there. So out of those 1,000 people, 12 people that were brave enough to come up to you recognized you, which is just crazy statistics.
And it's always great. And I've never sent an autograph before like that. So it was cool. And I did something really neat. I had my camera on me, so I did. I said, you know what? I'll tell you what. Why don't we get a video of you and I just kind of shaking hands and talking to each other, and I'll put it in my next video.
That's so awesome.
So kind of made it to say hopefully, but really cool kid, and his dad was great. But here's the cool story though. I was walking the MGM Grand, right? And it was after the expo. It was probably 7 o'clock at night, and I looked like maybe like 4 feet in front of me, and I see Will Wheaton walking. It's familiar with Will Wheaton. He's like Next Generation.
Wesley Crusher.
Yeah, Wesley Crusher. He's got a blog called The Guild, which is pretty popular. But anyway, I'm like, hey, Will Wheaton, what's up, man? And he turns around, and he turns around kind of very slowly. I could kind of tell he's like, oh no, here I go again, right? But he turns around and he comes up to me. He's like, I know you from somewhere. And I'm like, well, I met him at PAX, which is a gaming expo up in Seattle. He's up there every year, and I met him once up there, and whatever. But he meets thousands of people at these expos, right?
Right.
And I'm like, well, I told him, well, I met you at PAX. He's like, no, that's not it. And I was wearing my Gamester 81 shirt, and I'm like, well, I got this channel on YouTube. He's like, oh yeah, that's where I know you.
Wow, so he's watching stuff.
So you never know who's watching your channel, I guess. And it was really cool, and it kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. So that definitely made my day because I'm a big fan of Will Wheaton.
No, and he texts me this, and I was just like, my God, that's so awesome. What a great story.
So it was an amazing experience. I had a blast. I was definitely in my element. I loved. I picked up some great games. While I was there as well. So that was cool. So it was fun.
Right.
Never know. Miyamoto might be watching you right now.
There you go.
He's probably watching me right now.
He's going, that kid's game zoom is crazy.
Yeah. So did a lot of homebrews, which is cool. I picked up for Atari 2600. I picked up Halo 2600, which is a game it's like Halo game for the Atari 2600. It's pretty wild.
Oh, really?
What's that?
No kidding.
Yeah. So I mean, there's I picked up a multi-cart for the Vectrix, which is all the games in one. I paid $50 for that, and I picked up. They had a ColecoVision cart with all 125 games in one, and I paid $125 for that. So $1 game, but that's pretty cool.
Oh, did you ever pick up that? What was it? The Harmony cart for the 2600, the SD memory card one that who was it? I can't. Maximum RD picked up. For
the 2600, something you can put ROMs on and stuff.
Yeah.
I saw one for the 5200. I haven't seen one for the 2600. But
was it for the 52? Maybe it was for the 52.
Yeah, no, I haven't picked that up yet. But I know they had something like that for the ColecoVision and something like that too. That's cool. I haven't picked that up yet. Now, it's cool though.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Hey Pete, what have you been playing?
Yeah, so you guys know I did the video. I got the Sega CDX finally. And I was really excited because, well, here's what happened. A while ago, about a year ago, maybe even longer than that, I picked up a copy of Heart of the Alien on Sega CD, which is basically the Out of This World game, which I picked up on the 3DO, and I really loved it. That was just a classic, side scroller that I had been meaning to get for years and years, and I finally picked up the 3DO copy and really enjoyed it. It's a very challenging game. And then when I found out that they had a version of it on the Sega CD, with the sequel that was only released on the Sega CD from what I can remember, I picked that up. And I went to go try it out on my Sega CD, and at the time I had, well, first of all, the first Sega CD I got was a Model 2, and that eventually stopped working. And then I picked up a Model 1 because I just liked the design of it more. And then that, when I went to go test out Heart of the Alien, it just wouldn't turn on whatsoever. It's a problem inside, but I'm not really a big mod person, so I didn't really want to rip it open and play around with it. Yeah, what's up?
The Model 1 is the tray, right?
Model 1 is the tray, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Model 2 is the one that's like a side dock where, it's sort of sticking out the side. So that's when I discovered that my Sega CD was broken, and I was really mad because I was really looking forward to trying out, the new game I got. So it took me about a year, on and off. I wasn't like hardcore in the searching, but I would just search eBay every now and then for a Sega CD for a decent price. And I was really mad at myself because I went to the Too Many Games convention, like, I don't know, 8 months ago, whatever. I did the video on it, and they had
I saw that.
Sega. Someone was selling a Sega CDX there. It was loose with the controllers and hookups and everything for $80. And I know, Johnny, you were saying that, there was a $50 box one in game deals, but at least here in the United States, like, CDXs do not go that cheap. So, I saw it there for $80, and it was just when I went into the convention, and I was like, I'll come back and get it, because I still wanted to look around. I only had, so much money on me. I come back, like, a couple of minutes later, and the thing sold already. So I was pretty disappointed in that, because on eBay, it's really unheard of for that system to go for $80. So yeah, for like about a year on and off, I would search, and I was mainly looking for a lot, to get the CDX with some CD games, just some decent games. And, I have a bad habit of just forgetting about auctions, forgetting the bid. So there were a couple of good auctions that went by. And so I finally got a CDX box with some pretty decent games for a good price. And I actually just tested that out just yesterday. I played Heart of the Alien, and it was great. Between the 3DO version and the creator of the game, I forget his name, but he said that the 3DO version is actually his least favorite version because for people that aren't familiar with Out of This World, it was a very early game that sort of almost looked like it was, the beginning of cel-shaded games because everything was sort of like this, it's hard to describe. Like how do you guys know how to describe the graphics of that? Like what's the term for it, if you're familiar with it?
Yeah, what would the term be? Kind of like, yeah. It's a very hard one to describe.
Yeah, it's
kind of like 3D, but 2D.
Yeah, just to like imagine like cel-shaded games are now, but just without like the harsh black lines. Like it's a really unique look. But the thing is, in the 3DO version, the characters weren't very detailed. They still had that flat look to them, obviously, because they were already animated that way. But on the 3DO version, the backgrounds and everything were very detailed, sort of like completely redone. And the creator said it sort of took away the charm of the game because in the original like Amiga versions and everything looked the same. Everything was like flat tones, no shading, no detailed background. So I played the Sega CD version, and first of all, the music in it is so much better than the 3DO one. And I kind of agree with the creator. It definitely it looks a lot better when all the graphics look the same without the really detailed backgrounds. And it's a very brutal and challenging game. Like I can't tell you, I did a live broadcast of me trying to play this game once, and like I just kept dying, and it takes a lot of trial and error, but it's so worth it because I'm a huge fan of these kind of platformer games. It plays similar to like the classic Prince of Persia games. So think of it that way, or like a Syndicate kind of game. Or sorry, not Syndicate, Flashback. So I have yet to beat this game, but I was enjoying that, and the sequel I have yet to get to that. But from my understanding, it's kind of completely different from the original Out of This World. And for those of you that want to try Out of This World, it's basically available on like all systems. You can get it on the Genesis, Super Nintendo, obviously Sega CD, the Amiga, and everything. So
wasn't that done by the same programmer as Prince of Persia?
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that the game Heart of Darkness, which is one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 1 and of all time, actually, that was the second game that he worked on.
Yeah, it's a great game. Out of This World is great.
So besides that, I mean, I'm really happy to finally to be able to play some of my Sega CD games. And like I was saying earlier, I picked up a version of the Sega CD Dungeon Explorer, which I should hopefully have for next show. I'll talk about that. And in the mail yesterday, I got Death Smiles for the Xbox 360 finally. And I beat it last night because it was a fairly short game. And for people that don't,
I heard it was 4 levels or something, right?
It's only like 6 or 7 levels. And for people that don't know, it's like a bullet hell shoot 'em up that was basically originally from Japan. A lot of people did not expect it to get ported over, but recently a lot of these games have been getting ported to the U.S. like very unexpectedly. And I have to say, what got me to buy this game first of all was it was getting some pretty good praise. But like one of the bosses was a giant zombie cow. Like the second I saw that, I decided, I'm picking up this game. And most of the game, I kind of expected it to be really wacky, like the whole game, sort of like that giant cow boss, but it really wasn't. It was almost kind of, your standard enemies, giant crows and dragons and all that stuff. But what's really great about it is the animation on the enemies in this game are unbelievable. Like the giant bosses, it's still pixels. It's not like 3D renders, and they're really detailed. They look really great. I went through the game once, beat it, and then I started going through a second time because they have alternate modes where it's sort of like a variation. The first mode that I beat it on was Xbox 360 mode, and I have to say I have no idea what any of the different modes mean yet. I think some of them are just harder than others, and they kind of, because the second time I went through, I put it on an arranged mode, and the first boss was like a hell of a lot harder and a lot more stages to him. So, I mean, people that are worried about buying this game and not having replay value, I can assure you that there's plenty to go back to after you beat the game once, and as well as a mode that I didn't get to try was the online co-op, which I believe supports up to 4 people, which is actually pretty awesome. So yeah, that was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. If you've never played a shoot 'em up game before, this is probably not the first one to choose because they classify it as a bullet hell. And I'm not a huge shmup fan, which that's the first time I've actually called. I don't like using that term, but I'm not a huge shoot 'em up fan. But I can tell you this is definitely not one to get as your first game because bullet hell games are essentially like tons and tons of bullets on the screen, and you have to have a really keen eye to dodge between these bullets. I will say though that there's unlimited continues from what I played, so you can beat the game without any problems. But overall, yeah, that's basically all I've been playing. Besides Hydro Thunder, I did my review for that. I really enjoyed that game on the 360. So yeah, that's basically all I played the past week.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm still trying to get myself a Ketsui a board here for my arcade machine, but those things go for $500 here on the auctions. One good shooter, if you're interested in it, is comedical, really funny, is Sexy Parodius. You should try
Very
that out.
good shooter, absolutely.
Classic,
right?
What is that on?
Third stage. What's that?
What console is that on? Or is that an arcade game?
Well, it's an arcade one. If you have MAME or something like that, you can try it out. But the third stage boss will make you. I mean, you'll die. You'll laugh. It's so hilarious. It's like a giant. What is it? Like a giant bear or a raccoon. You have to shoot him in the face, but he's got these huge balls hanging down, and you have to shoot him in the balls too.
That's hilarious.
You gotta try it out. You'll just die when you see it because the balls are all realistically, colored and they're just massive. And it's so bad. Only in Japan, right?
Near the enemy skull.
Hey,
yeah. So.
Luke, how many arcade boards do you own?
I think I'm up to about 50 something.
Cool.
Or more. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm not sure. I got more coming in on a daily basis. I just picked up a Hyper Neo 64 board.
Oh my God! Really?
Oh wow!
Yeah, it should be coming in sometime in the next couple of days.
Where'd you find that?
Found it on the auctions, and it was really rare. And it's the one with Wild Ambition, or also known as Garo Densetsu or Fatal Fury. I had 2 of them that I had bidded on, and I lost the one. The other one was, what was it? Bukiri 1. It was kind of like it's another fighter. But what's interesting about these boards here, there was only 7 boards that were ever made for that Hyper 64, and each board is dedicated to a certain game. So you can have the motherboard for these Hyper Neo 64s, but the fighting board will only play fighting games, and there was only 2 fighting games released, so the fighting board can only be used for that. There's a shooting board which can only be used for Beast Busters, which looks like an awesome game, but it's impossible to find. There's a racing board which can be used for only 2 racing games, and I'm trying to think: racing board, shooting board, fighting board, and there's another board, but they're dedicated boards. What's that?
I was gonna say puzzle board. I don't know. Just throwing it out
It's not a puzzle. Yeah, but there's only 7 games released for it, so it went under quick. So I'm trying to get my hands on a few of these boards here because they're rare, and for 2, I mean they look really cool. I mean you have to go back and you have to step back and kind of think to yourself, okay, I know that the graphics are not up to today's standards, and looking at them, it looks kind of like Nintendo 64 or early PlayStation graphics. But thinking about the time, at the time they were probably pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
I only thought there was Samurai Showdown for that, or Samurai Spirits. I didn't know.
Yeah, there is. That's the other
No,
fighting one.
that's the only game I ever heard of for that machine, for that arcade machine.
yeah.
That was it.
What would one of those cost? Just a ballpark.
For a board, you're probably looking at about $150 at least, just to get one. And there was 2 revisions of the board. There was the first board that came out. It actually needed a separate hookup for the sound. And the second revision that they did, they intertwined everything into a JAMA harness. So if you get one of the first version boards, you have to do a modification on it in order to get the sound to work properly on the board. But yeah, you're looking at least 150, and that's for the original, probably Wild Ambition or the Bukuri 1, other fighting game. Anything else like Beast Busters, I saw Beast Busters one time, and that board was going for $600.
Wow.
So.
How about the hybrid?
Sorry, just what is Beast Busters? I've never heard of that.
Beast Busters was originally I think it came out in 1990s. It came out on the original arcades. It's a shooter, kind of like a House of the Dead. And the original Beast Busters, it was kind of tacky, but at the time, actually it might have come out in the late 80s, maybe it was 89. But for that time, it was pretty good. And then Beast Busters, when it came out, Beast Busters for the Hyper Neo 64, it looked a lot better. It was more of like the original House of the Dead. So, pretty cool. If you have a chance, check for it. Yeah.
Actually, guys, before we get, I have a really, really awesome news story that, especially Johnny, I know you're going to like this because you play MMOs. I don't know about you other guys, but I was reading on Joystick, Transformers MMO primed for 2011 release in Asia.
Oh my god.
So here's what they say. The Transformers license, much like the car shape robots contained within, is adapting into a new form, an MMO game. NetDragon, a Chinese online developer also responsible for the new Ultima Online, has worked out a deal with Hasbro to develop an MMO based on the robots in the skies due next year. Unfortunately, pretty much the only detail announced about the game is that it's expected to officially roll out 2011 in China as well as other select markets in Asia. MENA and Russia, CIS, I don't know what the hell that is. If you're an American and we're really dreaming about building a custom carbot avatar and giving your friends metal high fives. Yeah, and that's basically all they say, which is, I don't know why they're releasing it in Asia first, I guess so that they can get a head start on farming for money in the game and then selling it, because that's what they do, Oh, God.
Yeah. I tell you what, Korea has, I want to say it's something like 70% of the population who plays games. And they play a lot of MMOs. They play a lot of online games. And I'm trying to think, there's one game in particular that is most popular in Korea. It's insane. Everybody plays it. And I can't think of it. Like WoW in Japan and things like that, those are not popular. But, I can't remember.
StarCraft?
That's it, StarCraft. Bingo.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking that.
Actually, speaking of StarCraft, StarCraft 2 sells 1 million units in one day, 1.5 million in the first 48 hours, roughly 620,000 in the United States.
Wow.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
So,
which I forgot to say, actually, I was playing that too, but, I think I've already talked about it as much as I could. I'm still really enjoying StarCraft 2. I'm getting better now. I'm playing as the Protoss. That's my faction that I play as now. So, but I guess we'll move on to Johnny. Have you been playing anything new?
Oh, it's probably the same answer as last time. Lots and lots of Dragon Quest IX, and it was cool. I think I mentioned on the last podcast we did that I was going to go to Game Deals and they were having a get together, and we are going to play a brand new map from EB Games. Somebody was going to go to EB Games, download the map, this exclusive map. They were releasing at EB Games last Saturday. And so I show up at Game Deals, and there's like 12 guys actually there. I'm like, wow. So I said, okay, who got the map from EB? And nobody did. And I mean in GameStop. Was it in the States there?
It used to be EB Games, and it got bought out by GameStop, yeah.
GameStop, okay, sorry. So I never want to get that wrong for the States. So I said, who got the exclusive map? Everybody went down there. Supposedly EB Games was jam-packed with people trying to get in for this exclusive map, and nobody got it.
Well, explain to the listeners, how you get the maps.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm about to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Basically, you only get a map. Say somebody discovers a map in their game, and you want the map. You have to play the map and beat it. That way you can take it. So all these players were playing this map. They get to and you have to beat an end boss. Basically, you do basically a dungeon. You get to an end boss. You fight the end boss. You beat him. You can take the map. Well, the problem is the end boss was killing everybody in like 2 hits. So, and we're talking like, I know the game's just brand new out, but we're talking like level 45 players were going up against this end boss and nobody could beat him. So nobody could get the map, so nobody got it. So everybody ends up at Game Deals, this is my local video game store, used video game store, and we just basically traded our own maps and played the game that way. And I got to say, again, for the multiplayer, fantastic. Really fun stuff when you're all sitting in the same room, you're all playing the same dungeon map. It's a lot of fun. So still playing Dragon Quest IX, and definitely get a chance to do the multiplayer, please do it. That's what makes the game shine. So that's all I've been doing, nothing else actually.
It's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
I killed it. I ended the conversation. That's it. Dragon Quest IX. That's all you have to do for the rest of your life, kids. End the story. Everybody go home and play that. Bye-bye.
We were just happy you were through clear, so we were just listening.
Yeah, I was happy. I'm like, nobody's saying anything. So my mic must be okay now. So I'm like, maybe I should just stop in case it all of a sudden goes all screwed up at the end or something. So glad it's okay again. That's pretty good.
Pete, do you want to wrap up? Should we wrap up the podcast then? And I mean,
Yeah, I think for this week, I think we're pretty much good. I just want to thank Chris for coming on, for joining us, and especially for our surprise guest here, Luke, who just happened to come on at the right time to help us talk about the PC Engine and everything else. I mean, that's basically it for.
Oh, no, I was just saying, no, I appreciate you guys dragging me in here, and it's kind of a rare opportunity, so it was a lot of fun.
I know you're a busy guy there, so.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, thanks a lot for thinking of me for this whole thing. It's been a blast, and I really appreciate it. So.
I want to do a big plug for Spider1A's channel on YouTube. Definitely check it out. He covers every single Turbo Grafx game, or will. How many reviews have you got up right now, Chris?
Well, let's see. The American, I'm gonna look real quick. The American reviews, we have 45 done, and then once in a while we'll throw in a import game or something here or there. But as far as American reviews, we got about 45. So
yeah. So definitely check him out on YouTube. Channel user Spider1A. Spider1A. I can't say that enough. And he's also got a DVD out, and there's a link on his main profile page to that. So definitely check out the DVD. I think we all have a copy. Do we not? Who doesn't have a copy of this?
I don't. I'm guilty. I need to get one. I'm going to get one.
I don't either.
Yeah, somebody else
you can type in turboviews.com, and I'll get it out tomorrow, guys. Thanks, Johnny. I appreciate it.
No, definitely. I really I can't say enough how much I enjoy the DVD, and your grand scale of reviewing every single Turbo Grafx game, American game, is just so awesome. So I just want other people to be able to check this out. Definitely. So awesome having you on, man. Really great having you on.
Yeah, same here. Hopefully we can maybe do it again sometime. And good luck with this whole venture. I'm looking forward to listening.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to thank all the listeners that stuck through this episode. I mean, I realize I haven't gone back to edit it yet, but I realize there's probably going to be a lot of like weird audio issues because don't forget we're recording this on Skype, and a lot of it is because of internet connections. Like there might be a lot of cutting out of voices, and of course Luke's mic is a little bit screwed up, but that doesn't matter. It was totally worth it to sacrifice a little bit of quality.
Yeah,
Luke Morse in here.
Yeah, because it's just so awesome that we can all actually get around to actually chatting, and Skype is the best way to do that, and it's not always perfect.
And I just also want to give a shout out to Luke Morse's channel, Luke Morse 1 on YouTube. He's got a fantastic channel. He does a lot of repairs and mods, and he covers a lot of arcades and a lot of Japanese games and all that. So check him out. And
one of the most unique and original channels on YouTube. And I just want to spell that out because we have a lot of young listeners. It's LukeMorse, and then the number 1 is his YouTube link. And of course, I'll have it in the description as well for this episode. And also, because I know last episode, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I said that we were going to accept questions if you went to our forum and left us questions for this show that we can answer. Unfortunately, we may not have Chris or Luke with us to answer those because obviously we're recording this before people even got a chance to submit those questions. So there might be a little bit of weird editing after this if we get around to it. We will, if we get accepted on iTunes by the time that, this episode goes up, we'll record, our answers to your questions and I'll edit them in after this. But if not, then, we'll have to wait until whenever that's possible.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. A lot of fun.
And I hope to have you guys on again as guests, in the future. So
anytime. I love it.
All right, cool, guys. So everybody, thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening to episode 2 of All Gen Gamers. If you like this episode, we got plenty more coming up. Be sure to check out our website at allgengamers.com. We're gonna have our form up on there. You can interact with us, ask us questions for the show, and all that fun stuff. So we'll see you guys next week.
All right.
Take care.
So, guys, at the end of our last episode, we asked you to, leave us some questions in our forum, and our forum is on allgengamers.com. And so what we've done is we've actually gone and read some of those, and we've all picked a question each. Now, the thing is when we asked you that question, when Pete asked that question the last time, the forum wasn't up. So this is a little bit of a weird edit. We're actually going to throw this into the end of this episode, but we are definitely going to start answering your questions now. And we're quite excited about it. So I've gone, I'll just start off, and I'll read a question that, was given to all of us, and then I'm going to pass it on to Gamester and Pete to get their response from it, and then I'll answer it last. So this is from Xbox 360 Collections. He says, I have a question for all of the hosts. Did you ever think when you first started out on YouTube that your channels would be as popular as they are today? Great question. Pete, I'm going to throw it to you first, then obviously to Gamester. Did you ever think when you started, obviously your show, that it would ever reach, at this present point, 36,000 subscribers? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing. When I first started back on YouTube, I looked up to, there were maybe 2 channels on YouTube that had a lot of subscribers. Think of this, these days on YouTube, having 3,000 subscribers, as weird as it seems is not really, it's not as huge as it used to be. But back then, when Magus X1 had like 2,000 subscribers, I looked up to this guy. I was like, wow, this guy, he's famous on YouTube. So naturally, when I started my channel, and think of this is back when Happy Console Gamer just had or Johnny had a few hundred subs. So when I started up my channel, naturally, when I reached 100 subscribers, it was a huge, huge surprise to me. And, you guys can go back and watch the videos with my response to the whole thing. Because back then, it wasn't as popular as it was now, where channels back then didn't thank their subscribers as much as they do now. Now it's like everybody thanks them at 500, 1,000. It's sort of a given. So you can go back and watch my videos, and I was super, super excited to get 100. And then, of course, I like to call it the snowball effect, where it seems like over time it just started going faster and faster, and before you knew it, I was at 500. And then the next thing you know, I'm at 1,000, and I'll never forget this one comment that somebody left in my 1,000 subscribers video, where he says, GP, it's gonna, not an exact quote, but he's like, GP, it's only gonna be a matter of time before you're at 10,000 subscribers. And I just remember thinking to myself, yeah, right, that's never gonna happen in my lifetime. And what do you know, I don't know exactly how long from then. It was probably maybe, I don't know, a few months. I was at 10,000, and at that point, it was almost surreal, and since then it's just been, it's spiraled out of control almost. And I know I've mentioned this before, I'm not sure on the podcast, but I'm not in like this high almighty power state where it's like I think I'm better than everybody else. I'm just glad that, everybody, that 36,000 people have taken the time to subscribe to my channel. So in short, the answer would be no. I never imagined my channel would get this big, because I never planned for it to be this big. I sort of did it personally for myself, to make myself happy, to something to do in my spare time. And the fact that I've stuck with it for so long, because in the past, here's a little quick thing about me. I used to be a big fan of making websites, and I'd make a website for, a certain game or something, and I would always lose interest in the website, and like after 6 months to a year. So for me to commit to a project such as this for as long as I have, it's awesome for me, and that's definitely due in part to all the community support. So that's my answer there. And Gamester, what do you think of this? What's your take on how your channel is evolved?
It's a good question. it's a great question, and I appreciate Xbox 360 Collections posting it. My answer to that question is actually very similar to yours, Pete, in the sense that when I started my channel, I was really stoked to get 100. It took me 3 months to get to 100 subscribers, and with that day, I remember the day I got 100 subscribers, I was really stoked. And similar to yourself, my video is still posted on my channel, and I'm really stoked. And I remember giving Luke Morse a shout out, and I'm mispronouncing his name. I said Luke Morse. That's how noob I was in the gaming community here on YouTube. But no, and it's incredible. I'm pushing, I got about 12,500 subscribers at this point, making this podcast, and it's incredible. And I think, I think it's really wild when people come up to you in public and recognize you. I know, Johnny, you've had that, and Pete, you've had that as well. And I think it's great that people come up and say hi. I appreciate that. I would never have expected to be where I'm at right now, a year and a half later, making my videos, as far as that goes. Now, Pete, you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, don't forget back when, at least, I know, Gamester, you jumped in later on, but when Johnny and I were making our channels, it wasn't like it was like it is now. Back then, people weren't making endless shout-out videos. There wasn't the subscription box where you can, check out other people's channels right from their homepage. We relied on, just the word of mouth, and just, when we did a shout-out video, it was pretty effective. That was really one of the only ways for us to get the word out there for our channels. And, it was just a very, very slow evolution of subscribers, like you were saying, where I was getting 2 or 3 a day, and I was really happy with that. And like you said, it took you 3 months to get to 100. Well, same thing with me. It took me, probably a good 2 or 3 months to get to 100 subscribers.
Absolutely. It's definitely a snowball effect. And like you mentioned before, and I'm averaging like 60 subscribers plus a day, and it's unbelievable that people can find my channel and subscribe. And I really appreciate the comments people leave as well. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think we all do, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Johnny?
Well, it's obviously it's the same as you guys. It's just, I think when I came on YouTube, I was looking up to people like the Angry Video Game Nerd and stuff like that, and they had like 200,000 subscribers. I was like, I think maybe it was 150,000 or something at that time. I didn't even dream to ever get that big at all. But I think my big dream was to hit 1,000. I was like, if I hit 1,000, then I have a little, actually at the time I thought, then I have a pretty good size, community to watch videos that I make, and that's all I need. I'll be happy with that number, and that way I can make videos and people are watching them. And 1,000 is the perfect number. I didn't dream too big. I didn't think I dreamt too small. I thought that's just kind of right. But isn't it funny, guys, and you guys know it too, is that I didn't realize it would just keep going up. And it's wonderful. It's such a surprise. But I never expected it to keep on going. And now, every day now it's like 50 to 60 subscribers, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, why does it go like that? I don't know the magic formula, But I never kind of thought that I was gonna, get recognized in public. Never in a million years. I've been recognized probably. It's kind of weird. Probably about 14 or 15 times now, and that's just the surreal thing. I know, Pete, you've been, people, at work and out and about. People have recognized you, and the same for Gamester. It's wild, isn't it, guys? It's just amazing. But I never thought I'd be that kind of have a really well-known channel on YouTube, and I think it's wonderful. And I got to thank all the subscribers like you guys have, because that's what it's all about. In the end of the day, I make the videos for all the fans watching, and all the response back is what fuels me to make videos. And just as long as somebody watches and goes, hey, that's kind of cool that he did that, or that's cool he mentioned that machine, or hey, somebody's mentioning the Turbo Grafx and PC Engine. That's I feel like I've done my part. I'm pretty happy. So that's my answer in a nutshell.
And Gamester, you had something to add to that?
Well, yeah, it's funny. I can't stand watching my earlier videos.
I'm the same way. I think we cover this in episode, I don't know, it might have been episode 2, but yeah, I go back and watch my videos and I'm like embarrassed of them almost.
We all are.
It's embarrassing to watch them, and I've noticed now a lot more people critique my videos if I make a mishap or see something wrong. All people call me out on it, which is good. I think there's a right way to call someone out and a wrong way to do it. But that's just what I want to add. It's kind of funny. And I've noticed I was looking also, I've had not only a lot of subscribers, I have a lot of people who unsub me as well. I think I've had close to 1,000 people who've unsub me, and that's fine. It happens. And I do this video or this channel because I have a passion for gaming, and I like to have. I think we all have a very common interest in the passion. That's what
definitely.
I had. So yeah, definitely. So,
I just find it funny when people leave me comments like, I miss the old school Pete Thor videos. I'm like, what the hell do they even mean by that? What do they want me back on my crappy little webcam? I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I'm taking my channel wherever it goes. So I guess I'm going to do my question next, and my question comes from Starman6996, and his question is, a lot of people go to your 3 channels and many others on YouTube for gaming news, reviews, impressions, etc. Where do you 3 get your gaming news from, like IGN, Giant Bomb, EGM, G4? What website, magazine, or other media do you prefer or recommend? So, Gamester, where do you go to get your gaming updates and gaming news from?
So yeah, I definitely check out IGN.com, and I'm a subscriber to Game Informer and Nintendo Power. I like Game Informer. In fact, when I do traveling, what I'll do is I do a lot of traveling for work, and I'll bring it on the plane. I'll skim through it like cover to cover, and I think it's interesting the different games coming out. So I definitely check those out. Getting into more Retro Gamer, which is a magazine I know I recently picked up in Canada, and I think they're in the States as well, Barnes & Noble possibly, but fantastic magazine is called Retro Gamer Magazine, and they cover obviously a lot of retro games. So that's a fantastic resource to cover a lot of retro games. How about you, Johnny?
Wow. What's really sad for me is that, especially I did an episode on video game magazines, I don't read video game magazines anymore. I used to. It's really sad that I don't anymore. Just in the last bunch of years, it's just purely online gaming information. Just because I think you can find out information the day it happens, the second it happens. And I really like that kind of, that information that fast. But where I go to NeoGAF. If anybody knows that, big popular site. It's called neogaf.com. I go to the forums on there. They're what I'd like to say is some of the best forums out there for gaming news. And also I go to MagicBox, themagicbox.com, /magicbox.com. I've got my news from these guys for years. They're fantastic. They do little summaries, point form notes with screenshots, and everything of the day that's kind of new and exciting going on right in there. That is basically where I get all my gaming information from these days. So that's basically that. So, Pete, I'm kind of curious, where do you get your gaming news from?
Well, the funny thing with me is before I got big on YouTube, I used to be big into going to all kinds of gaming websites. I went to IGN, I went to GameSpot, and it was weird back then because we didn't have the blogs, and I'll get to that in a second because blogs are my favorite form now for the news. But I stopped visiting GameSpot when Jeff Gertzman got fired for his Kane and Lynch review, which is obviously why he got fired. He gave the game a 6.0, and they fired him, and they left and started the Giant Bomb website. So all to them, I used to go there a lot for my news, but I stopped going to them. IGN, I just stopped as well. Basically, in short, when I started up YouTube, I basically lost all my time to visit all these websites and read all the news. So really now, I rely on podcasts. One of the only podcasts I listen to right now is the Video Game Outsiders, and they tend to cover some, most of the top news stories. Most of it I might already know about before they talk about it on their show. And my number one news source is joystick.com. Obviously next to Kotaku, the most popular video game blogging website. I just really like their style. They update it constantly. And the thing about them is they cover news stories that, the bigger sites would never cover. So they cover the really small stuff that, they even cover, like, if a new Sonic figure is coming out or something, they'll post an article on there about that. But, yeah, so I basically just use Joystick. I use podcasts. And every once in a while, like message boards, like my forum, I know a lot of people post news stories on there, and I'm actually quite surprised by it. I'm like, wow, I didn't hear about this yet. And as well as YouTube itself. I know not too many people do gaming news styles videos on there, but if someone posts a review or something for a new game that came out that I didn't know about, that's my way of finding out about a lot of new games that I didn't know about. So I'm not really up to date as much as I used to be when it comes to gaming news, because I simply just lack the time to check all these websites and everything for up to the minute stuff. So I keep it as simple as I can. I get as much information as I can from the few sites that I do visit. So I guess now we'll move on to Gamester. What was the question that you picked out?
Oh, the third and final question, the best question left for last. No, I'm just joking. Is from my fellow YouTuber Shack Attack, and his question is, what do you guys think of digital distribution? So Johnny, I'll start with you, and you can kind of talk about digital distribution and your thoughts about gaming, and go from there.
Wow, it's a big thing. You know, it's so funny. A lot of people have been saying to me, digital distribution is the wave of the future," and I don't fully agree with that. People think that in the future we won't have any physical games. It's all going to be downloading. I don't think so, because like, what if you wanted Metal Gear Solid 5 and you wanted to download that? It's the size of a Blu-ray. The thing's going to be like 50 gigs. You can't download that. You will always have to go into a store and buy it. So I think the infrastructure for buying games and actually having a physical copy will always exist, especially as games become bigger and more complex with bigger machines over time. But I think it's a wonderful thing for games like, what was it, Mega Man 9 and 10? Those are huge hits for Capcom. I think I mentioned that before. So, that's kind of cool that you can actually get a game that they wouldn't put on a disc. They wouldn't put Mega Man 9 on a disc. That would be a huge expense for Capcom to do for an old school type of game. It makes more sense to do on download, and it gives a lot of people the opportunity to quickly download a game, pay $5-10 and try a new game. I've been trying out a lot of games that I wouldn't go into a store and personally buy, but I can download for like $10, and so I like it. I think it's a really cool thing. The future, let's see. If the infrastructure of the internet somehow we can download things a lot faster than we do now, then maybe it might become more of the future, just downloadable content. But I think it's found its place for now. I think it's just gonna evolve from there. But I think it'll be a slow evolving type of thing. But I think it's a good where it's at right now is really good. So, Pete, what do you think?
Well, yeah, you touched on one of the things that I'm really strong about too, and that's, without digital distribution, we wouldn't be able to play so many of the great games like Limbo that just came out. There's no possible way that they would release that kind of game on a disc because, the game's a couple of hours long. The sales for it would not, it doesn't warrant having a $30, $40, or $50 game. So, and I'll tell you, I've played so many great downloadable games over the past couple of years that I'm really happy that, these small-time developers have the chance to have their games distributed digitally. So without that, we wouldn't be playing a lot of these great games. Another thing to keep in mind, too, is, people think in the future, is it all going to be digital? Just think about the new market that all the companies are going for now. Like, think Microsoft, Sony, and especially Nintendo with the Wii. They're all trying to go for this casual market all of a sudden, especially with the Wii, and now with the Kinect and all that stuff. But just think, they're targeting these parents and these older people now in gaming. And if everything shifts to digital, are these people that aren't up to date on gaming like we are they really going to want to download everything? Are they going to have the knowledge to do so? Are they just really going to be up for downloading all of their games and spending $40 or $50 per download? I really don't think so. And just don't forget about the used game market. How many people do you know that buy games and they beat them in a couple of days and they trade them in the GameStop? As bad as that may be, I actually recommend selling them on eBay to get most of your money back. But honestly, in my opinion, years later, digital distribution probably will be pretty big, much bigger than it is now, especially with the iPhone and all that kind of stuff coming up. But that's another subject. But we're probably always going to have physical games until, like you said, if they ever come out with some kind of technology, which something that I do want to mention, though, because I'm sure a lot of people are screaming at their computer screens right now. The on live service that I'm not an expert on this. I haven't really honestly looked into it too much. But from what I understand, you can basically hook this thing up to an internet connection and it'll stream like full-fledged games right to your TV. So it doesn't require any like big file downloads from what I understand. So, things like this device, which I'm sure if we all do our research on it a little bit more, maybe we'll bring that up as a future subject for the podcast. But if things like this start coming out, like just imagine having a small Xbox 360 console like in the palm of your hand and, being able to stream all the new games while the developers still charge you full price for them. So, I don't know, there's a lot of different ways that this can go. But, that's basically my answer for the whole thing.
Like, games like Shadow Complex, right? Like, have you played that, Pete?
Yeah, I have. Great game.
What a fantastic game, eh? Yeah. Like, that's just it, like, the kinds of awesome games you can get from downloading. I love that game. It's just brilliant. So, sorry, go, Gamester.
Oh, no, for sure. I think you guys brought some really great points up. I mean, keep mentioning the casual gamer at this a legitimate point. And Johnny, I think both of you guys touched base on some fantastic downloads that wouldn't probably be available if they were sold at a retail store. But I think you have to take a look at a system by Sony, the PSP Go. As an example, is a question you should ask yourself, is the market really ready for downloadable systems? And I think the answer is no right now, because you look at the Go, or what I call no-go at this point. And you really, I mean, the sales, you go into GameStop, you ask them, most GameStops, it's the original shipment of Go's that they had, and this was like, 10 months ago? I don't know when it came out, but it's less than a year, and, I think the trials, jury's still out as far as digital download. But I'll tell you one thing I don't like about digital downloads is the fact you can't trade them in. And I like, as a gamer and as a collector, I like the ability to go to my GameStop or go on eBay or whatever and sell my games back if I don't want it anymore, or trade it in for value. And with digital gaming, you can't do that. What happens if you have a 360 and you download games and it crashes for some reason and you lose your account or something? How are you saved against that? So I think there's some issues they need to work out with that, but that's kind of my point. But I do like some of the games they're coming out with, but I think we're probably close to 7-8 years away before it's all digital. Because like you said, Johnny, I think we have to wait till faster connections to download it all.
Definitely a faster internet connection for sure. For sure. So
for sure.
Cool. So those are some awesome questions that we got asked, and we just want to let you guys know in the future any other questions that you guys have, please put them in our forum, and that's on allgengamers.com. And what we're going to do is every week we're going to go in and pick a new question each and read them on the air and answer them for you guys. So thank you very much for your questions.
Alright guys, so there's the end of episode 2. We really hope that you enjoyed it. We loved having our guest hosts on, and the surprise guest appearance by Luke Morse won. So the podcast went on a bit longer than we had originally anticipated, because we were basically about to end it. We covered basically everything that we could about the Turbo Grafx, but then Luke Morse got on, and we were like, hey, how about we bring Luke in, because it would be perfect to get him in and just have his perspective on the PC Engine in Japan, to go with our Turbo Grafx episode. So that was definitely cool. We hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. And just a tip for those of you that think that this podcast may be too long, the way to take advantage of a podcast is download it, and then what you can do is you can always listen to some one day, come back and listen to more the next day, and listen to more the next day. Like when I download a podcast, I don't listen to the thing all one go. That podcast will usually last me most of the week, if not into the next week, because I split it up. I only listen to it in like 20-minute, 30-minute bursts. Sometimes I'll listen to the whole thing every once in a while, but if you think our podcast was too long, and if future episodes are this long as well, just don't listen to it all at once. Maybe listen to a half an hour before you go to bed, and then stop it, and then resume it the next day, and so forth. So, also just want to remind you guys that the best way to find our podcast is on iTunes. You head right on over to iTunes, and you can search All Gen Gamers, all is one word, or separate words, or search any of our names on there. The podcast will come up, and then from there you can subscribe, where the podcast will automatically download right to your computer. And for those that did request it, we are also now on the Zune Marketplace. So those of you that do have a Zune, you can also find us on there as well. And also be sure to leave us reviews. We really appreciate the great reviews, guys. We read each and every one of them. So leave us a review, leave us a star rating. We really do appreciate it. And then just make sure that you also come on over to our website at allgengamers.com, where there's links to the show, the episodes, links to our guests' channel pages, as well as a link to the forums where you guys can interact with us. You can leave us suggestions, and best of all, you can leave us questions for next week's show, where we may actually get around to answering them. I also want to make clear that if you left a question and it was not answered on this show, that does not mean that we will not use that question in a future episode. We can only cover so many in an episode, so even if you left us a question and we didn't get around to it, there's no saying that a couple episodes from now we may actually go back and read your question. So, and we'll see you guys again next week on Wednesday for a brand new episode of All Gen Gamers. And just as a little bonus for those of you that stuck with the podcast until the end here, I'm going to close the show out with a little bonus blooper to show you guys the complications that we run into while trying to record this podcast on Skype. So, hope you guys enjoy. Here you go. All right, so we'll do it that way. I'm recording right now, so.
Yeah. Explain that you live in Japan and all.
Now Johnny's cutting up like crazy.
Yeah, I know. I heard that. I was like, what? Yeah.
I thought it was Japanese for that moment. I was like, what is he trying to speak?
Yeah, I know. I was trying to figure it out too. I think he said I'm having some mic problems, but I'm not sure.
That was a hell of an intro, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Thank you, Soundwave.
Pull me back in.
I should like edit this in at the end of the show as like a little blooper.
All right, back again. Luke here.
Yeah, no, it'd be more like, oh, you.
Hey,
Okay.
Johnny, say something.
Do I sound okay?
Yes.